Welcome back to Sausage and Egg McMuffiners and Hash Brown in the Middlers. Welcome back to Red or Brown Sauce Debaters and Latte One Sugar Drinkers. And welcome back to those who drive through. We know you missed us. We missed you too. Welcome back to the breakfast you love at McDonald's. Takeaway, McDelivery or drive-through. Served until 11 a.m. subject to participating restaurants' opening hours and menu choices.
Economy, which is set to contract as much as 7% this year amid the coronavirus crisis. Let's turn our attention to another election. In Poland, voters are heading to the polls again in a second-round presidential vote on Sunday. This comes after President Andrzej Duda lost his first-round lead over centrist Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski. Bloomberg's Marek Strelecki reports.
The past 2 months have been like a roller coaster ride, with pro-European camp clashing with the conservative and Polonocentric face of the nation. Stakes for Jarosław Kaczyński, a de facto leader of Poland, are as high as ever. After failing to win re-election in the first round, Duda has tilted further to the right to attract ultra-conservative voters. Still, 2 days before the vote, opinion polls show the incumbent and Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski running neck to neck. In Warsaw, Marek Strelecki, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
The coronavirus crisis in the U.S. is showing no signs of abating. Daily cases have gone over 60,000 for the first time. Texas has reported record virus deaths for a third straight day. Across the Pacific, Australia is tightening travel and renewing its quarantine rules. That's after a recent spike of cases in Melbourne. And the mayor of Seoul, South Korea's capital and largest city, has been found dead hours after he was reported missing. That was by his daughter. He was a contender for the country's presidential election race, which is happening in 2020. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Jan Gerrans. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Joan London with A Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, a place for mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-391-1755. That's 1-800-391-1755.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Taylor Briggs.
Uber is trying to achieve that long-awaited, elusive profitability. They're announcing plans to acquire the food delivery rival Postmates for about $2.65 billion. Some are welcoming the consolidation as a means to limit losses, while others expect an Uber-Postmates merger to now draw some antitrust scrutiny. Joining us now is Steve John. He's the founder and managing partner of Kindred Ventures, and he was an early investor in both Uber and Postmates. So, Steve, great to get your perspective on this. And I'm really curious. This market was desperate for consolidation. Is this the right deal, even though Postmates maybe wasn't a big competitor? I guess you just want to take out a competitor and consolidate in any way you can.
I think the important thing to note here is that these two companies have competed against each other for better part of a decade. Postmates started out as a courier API, in fact, and wasn't food focused. Uber Eats came into the market well after Uber ride sharing did, and there were early acquisition talks actually about merging the two companies about 4 years ago. And I think at that time, Uber Eats was seeing hypergrowth as a new business subsidiary within Uber on the Uber platform.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning, I'm Roger Hearing with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. And 17 minutes into the European opening, what we saw in Asia very much reflected now in Europe. We're seeing red across the screen. Stock 600 down 0.3%, FTSE 100 down 0.5%, the CAC down 0.7%, the DAX down 0.5%, the IBEX down 0.5% as well, and the FTSE MIB down 0.25%. We're also seeing red on the screen for US futures, S&P 500 down 0.7%, Dow down 0.8%, and the Nasdaq down 0.6%. We're certainly seeing also strength in bonds, perhaps as you might expect. US 10-year benchmark Treasuries strong. The yield is up 3 basis points at 58 basis points. Also, we're seeing Bunds yields up down 1 basis point, and also gilts down 2 basis points this morning on a 0.13 handle. The dollar is weaker, is stronger this morning, 0.25%. Also, interestingly, on cable, the pound is weaker, 0.2%, 1.257. WTI also is losing there, $38.76 the barrel. That's down 2.15%, and Brent down 1.7%. At $41.6 the barrel. That's Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Gerrans with more on what's going on around the world.
Roger, thank you. The EU's most powerful nations were handed a shock defeat over the post of Eurogroup president. Ireland's finance minister Pascal Donohoe won the ballot, backed by the bloc's smaller members. He defeats favourite Spanish economy minister Nadia Calvino. She was the preferred candidate of Germany, France, Italy and Spain. Now, President Donald Trump has to give up his tax returns, but it's unlikely they will be in the public eye before the November election. The Supreme Court rejected the argument that the president has complete immunity while he's in office. He now has to comply with a grand jury request for the records, but the justices blocked congressional access to the information, returning the case to the lower court. And in Hong Kong, schools are closing again on Monday. That's as coronavirus cases within the community surge after a stretch without infections. The financial hub is set to tighten social restrictions again after reporting 34 locally transmitted cases, the most in a single day since the pandemic began. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you so much. Now, some of the British High Street's most recognisable names are slashing jobs. That's despite new measures from Chancellor Rishi Sunak to avoid unemployment. John Lewis will shut 8 stores and lose as many as 1,300 jobs. Meanwhile, Boots will cut 4,000 roles, citing a dramatic reduction in people visiting the company's stores. Joining us now is Charles Allen, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Retail Analyst. Charles, great to have you with us. Take us below the surface of these job cuts. Are they completely driven by COVID and the post-pandemic world, or were there issues with these two brands previously?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. When we were talking last, we discussed how opening stores actually could be really expensive if a lot of your business has gone online. And I think, particularly at John Lewis, we've seen that. They were already 40% online. They're now talking about being 60 to 70% online. So some of the stores where they were expecting less traffic, it was just going to potentially be prohibitively expensive to reopen them. I think with Boots there is a particular circumstance is that, although we all think of Boots as a pharmacist and as and that is the sort of core of the actually the most profitable area is their beauty and cosmetics, and I think they've seen a really big fall in that area over the store closings, and they've obviously had a deep look at their business and thought about what is going to move online, which stores are going to be profitable when they reopen, and they've had to have a look at that.
Charles, are we going to be seeing more big names doing similar things? We've already obviously had Boots, John Lewis. Are we going to see other major areas thinking they simply can't keep doing business as they have?
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the two of the John Lewis stores are in big shopping centres, and I think one of the fears that other retailers must have is that some of these enclosed shopping centres are just not going to return to the levels of business that they did before, either because consumers just don't particularly want to go to them. I mean, it may be in 2 years they'll be going to them, but 2 years is a long time. And so, yeah, I think we will have a lot of retailers looking at the viability of their sites, particularly if people continue to shop online at the levels they've been doing over the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, what we've heard so far, of course, we've heard about job cuts from Rolls-Royce, Harrods, Monsoon, Accessorize, carrying out insolvency processes to shut stores, and then also Pret-a-Manger saying this week it will cut at least 1,000 jobs as it permanently closes 30 UK stores. For Boots specifically, of course, it's 48 Boots opticians stores that are going to close. Charles, are there any parts of the retail sector in the UK that are actually immune and that will be able to preserve jobs?
Well, I'm not sure if anyone's going to be completely immune but I mean, if we were to look, for example, at convenience food stores, I mean, generally they've done extremely well. People like shopping close to home. They've been able to increase the amount they sell quite dramatically and everything. But, even there's a sort of flip side, because there are convenience food stores in, heavily trafficked city centres that have had to remain shut. But broadly speaking, I think if you were to say convenience food stores are certainly there, probably most supermarkets as well, which have also done well through this period.
We're going to see a very different world, I think, in Britain's high streets coming forward. Thanks so much. Charles Allen there, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Retail Analyst, giving us a sense of what this actually might mean. Straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, a surprise win for Ireland as Pascal Donoghue wins a vote to become the next Eurogroup president. The results a blow to the bloc's major powers. We're going to be hearing from Brussels and from Bloomberg's Maria Tadeo.
And Roger, if we take a look at the markets, 25 minutes into the equity market open here in Europe, fourth day of losses for European equities. The Stock 600 right now down 0.3%. We're also seeing US futures weaker, S&P E-minis down almost 0.7%. But the risk-off is evident across assets. The 10-year Treasury yield down 3 basis points, 58 handle. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Ford CEO Jim Hackett is pushing back against a call from some employees to stop making vehicles for U.S. police departments. Hackett said the issues plaguing police credibility have nothing to do with the vehicle they're driving. Ford said recently that it accounts for nearly 2/3 of U.S. police vehicle sales. Stocks begin their Friday session with the major averages mixed for the week. Traders are grappling with the continued rise in coronavirus cases and its possible impact on the economy. Technology stocks continue to float above it all. The tech-heavy Nasdaq closed yesterday at another all-time high. Just one item on today's economic calendar. The government will report on June wholesale prices. Economists see a 0.4% gain in the producer price index. JetBlue is pulling up stakes in Southern California, shifting its primary base in the region from Long Beach to LAX. Its last flights from Long Beach are set for October 6th. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
How long will it take for the economy to recover?
How many of them have remained on the job throughout this?
People are not going to be in public transportation.
Nobody knows.
You have received £600 million from the UK.
But we can promise the most complete information and the most detailed analysis.
The question is, what kind of recovery will it be?
Through every twist and turn.
Would you be wary of investment in China at this point?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
What happens next? When a downturn looms,
Shareholders turn to the C-suite to maintain profitability. And for 2 decades, the leaders of Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies have turned to GEP for results. GEP's procurement and supply chain solutions help reduce costs, improve performance, and boost EBITDA. GEP helps great companies stay on track and primed for the next phase of the business cycle. GEP, helping the world's best companies do better.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Eurotunnel Le Shuttle is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car comfortably. Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery over...
Morning, everybody. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. I'm going to place stop on profit for Japanese yen. For all my positions, let's put first stop at 107. I need time scale. More. Even more, because I've been holding this position for about a week. Okay, it's somewhere here. All right. So I'm placing stop at 107. So let's see where I got my short positions. First position was 106.521. 106.521. Another position was the 106.192. 107.192. Sorry. 107.192. And third position 107.485. 107.485. Okay, somewhere here. But adjust it. 107.485 was short. I usually put red for new people just to understand. If I bought long or short, okay. 192. Again, red color. And this is 106.521. Okay. I'm going to put already placed stop at 107. So it will be 107. I always put yellow just to make the color different, and all these positions will go to be executed if price will reach this level at this price. So as you can see, 2 positions will be sold at profit, another position will be sold at loss. And this way, I don't have to put stop loss. So I try always buy at another level in order to reduce my losses, and from another point to have my position open and don't have loss at all on any positions. All right, let's see where it will go on Japanese yen. In the meantime, I'm going to place an order to buy, I think, euro, but not yet. Okay, I'll let you know when I'm going to buy it. Speak to you later, guys.
Targeted could include levies on French wine, cheeses, and handbags. One source says the U.S. may delay the implementation of the duties until France starts collecting its tax later this year. According to Politico, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer indicated such a move was imminent at an event yesterday. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Now, global banks are at risk of being caught between Beijing and Washington over Hong Kong's new security law. The scope of the new legislation has taken many businesses by surprise, perhaps especially Article 29, which forbids sanctions or hostile activities against Hong Kong and China. Companies that breach that rule risk fines or indeed losing their license to do business.
And the EU's most powerful nations were given a shock defeat over the post of Eurogroup president. Ireland's Finance Minister Pascal Donohoe won the ballot, backed by the bloc's smaller members. He defeated the favourite Spanish economy minister, Nadia Calvino. She was the preferred candidate of Germany, France, Italy and Spain.
Well, for more on that story, let's join Bloomberg's Maria Tadeo in Brussels. Maria, good morning to you. Now, a bit of a surprise that Pascal Donohoe came through like that. So what does it mean in terms of the Eurozone?
It's very surprising, actually. This is something, I'm not sure if I would call it a shock to the system, but it's definitely something that was unexpected. The clear favorite here was the Spanish finance minister, as you pointed out. She had the votes of Germany, Italy, France, the big three as they're called, and eventually did not manage to get the nomination, which is now going to the Irish finance minister, who's going to be replacing Mario Centeno. I think what you're seeing right now is that there's big divisions in Europe when you look at the north and the south, but you also do see divisions when you look at the size of the country, the big and the smaller ones. The smaller ones, the Eastern Europeans, they have their own priorities. In this case, well, they made it clear. The question at this point is, what does it mean over the short term for the recovery fund next week? What this has shown is that having the backing of Germany and France is not always enough. And then secondly, there's a big debate in Europe as to what to do with taxes, digital taxes, and countries that have perhaps fiscal perks for companies. And we know in the case of the Irish government, there's ongoing litigation over Apple, and we've already seen the European Commission hint at times that they believe Apple does not pay enough taxes in the country.
And Maria, Merkel met with Mark Rutte yesterday ahead of next week's summit. Do we see a compromise emerging?
Well, Anira, she is trying, and that's really the reason why she's been all over Europe, really trying to get to a compromise on a really what could be described as a charm offensive. She is meeting with Mark Rutte clearly because he is playing this very hard ball. He has been leading the so-called frugal bloc, and when you look at Mark Rutte, what he says is he believes it should be more of a very traditional bailout in which you're handed out cash via credit, and there is oversight and there are reforms. Angela Merkel is now hinting that she believes reforms are important and they should be part of the recovery fund, and there should be structural changes made, but it's nonetheless a tricky balance because for a country like Italy, they simply cannot accept anything that looks or feels like the troika as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. In terms of the timing, next week there's a summit that will be happening here in Brussels. The expectations of a deal are not very high, and I would say there's already speculation that a new summit could take place on the week of the 17th and then move over to the 27th of July. So it's probably going to take another one, and it's not clear that there could be a compromise ready by next week.
All right, Maria, thanks so much for being with us. Maria today, they're live on the line from Brussels. Now, let's get the latest in global news with Leanne Gerrans, and you start with the virus picture.
Yes, indeed, Roger. Good morning. So the coronavirus crisis over in the US is showing no signs of abating. Daily cases have gone over 60,000 for the first time. Texas has reported record virus deaths for a third straight day. Across the Pacific, Australia is tightening travel and renewing its quarantine rules. That's after a recent spike of cases in Melbourne. Now in Singapore, people are heading to the polls as Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's ruling party seeks to extend its 55-year rule. Bloomberg's Philip Hyman says Lee's party needs a fresh mandate to counter the worst ever recession amid the coronavirus pandemic.
Special precautions such as temperature screenings, the use of disposable gloves, and safe distancing rules are being implemented at the polling booths, which close at 8 p.m. Vote counting will begin immediately afterward, with the final outcome likely to be clear either late Friday or early Saturday. In Singapore, Philip Hyman's Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
In Poland, President Andrzej Duda says he'll never allow compensation for Jewish property lost in World War II. The controversial topic is resurfacing just days before the presidential runoff election. Duda has shifted further to the right as he faces tough competition from Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski. And the mayor of Seoul, South Korea's capital and largest city, has been found dead after hours. He was reported missing by his daughter. He was a contender for the presidential election in 2022. Bloomberg's Peter Pei has the details.
The body of Seoul City Mayor Park Won-soon, who had left a note on his office desk apologizing to his family, was discovered just after midnight local time by a rescue dog near a mountain trail. A longtime civic activist and a human rights lawyer, Bach was elected into office in 2011. Hours before his body was discovered, police said that one of his staff members had filed an undisclosed complaint against him a day earlier. In Seoul, Peter Pei, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you so much. Now with the morning sport, here's Sean Pritchard and the race for top places in the Premier League.
Manchester United remain in the hunt for a top 4 Premier League finish. They're within a point of the Champions League places after winning 3-0 at Aston Villa. Aston Villa remain in the relegation zone 4 points from safety. Bournemouth, while also in the bottom 3, secured a 0-0 draw against Tottenham. Everton drew 1-1 with Southampton at Goodison Park. Leeds are back a point clear at the top of the Championship this morning. They returned to the summit in some style, thrashing struggling Stoke 5-0 last night. The quarter-final and semi-final draws for the Champions League and Europa League will be held later today. Manchester City, Chelsea, Manchester United, Wolves and Rangers all still have to get through last 16 ties in their respective competitions. The quarters, semis and final of the Champions League will all be held behind closed doors in Portugal next month. The same will happen in Germany for the Europa League.
And that was Sean Pritchard with all the latest sport. Now, coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, we're going to be talking to Frederic Ducrozet, who's global strategist at Pictet Wealth Management, getting a sense of what he makes of what has been happening in those Asian stocks this week. Very much a wild ride, Naira.
Absolutely, especially in China. This is Bloomberg.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
The Boston Symphony Orchestra presents BSO at Home. While you stay inside, enjoy a curated collection of archived concerts and behind-the-scenes stories from BSO musicians. BSO Homeschool provides lessons for music lovers of all ages. New performances and messages from musicians are added regularly. Enjoy these selections and much more at bso.org/at-home.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just...
I'm going to move down stop and profit for Japanese yen to 106.095. 106.995. Like this. Okay, 106.950. Okay. So new stop on profit 106.95.
Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel, Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not book an MOT to get you safely back on the road? With over 600,000 carried out every year at 350 garages, you can always count on our experts. And get back to visiting those you've missed the most.
Hi, Mum.
From a safe distance, of course. From MOTs to battery replacements and tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished, with over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Thanks to National Lottery players, the Emerald Centre are now providing emergency food supplies and support for people in Bedfordshire like Alan. Thank you. And £600 million of National Lottery funding is on its way to thousands more local projects in England and across the UK during these exceptional times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
We're all guilty of spending too much time on social media.
Why not add something genuinely useful to your feed with TuneIn? Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to learn about some of the best stuff happening around the app. You might just discover your next audio obsession.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up with the Super Bowl predictions instead. Because we
Look no further than the Pick Six podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brince's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards. That's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning, I'm Roger Hearing with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash, and now 45 minutes into the European opening, we're seeing very much risk off is the mood, reflecting what happened earlier, of course, in Asia. Stock 600 down 0.25%, FTSE 100 down almost 0.5%, CAC down the same, and DAX down 0.25%, IBEX down 0.3%, FTSE MIB actually completely flat as we speak. We'll see how that changes. Looking to the US opening, S&P 500 futures down 0.6%, Dow down 0.7%, and Nasdaq down 0.5%. A lot of movement towards havens, of course. US 10-year benchmark bonds, 58 basis points is the handle. That's down almost 3 basis points. Bunds and gilts both also down a basis point this morning. The dollar is bid 0.2% up at the moment on Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index, and the pound on cable is 0.1% weaker, 1.2591. Oil also weaker this morning, $38.96 the barrel on WTI. That's down 1.6%. Brent down 1.3% at $41 the barrel. That's the Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Gerrans with more on what's going on around the world. Leanne.
Roger, thank you. In Hong Kong, schools are closing again, according to local media reports. That's as coronavirus cases within the community surge after a period without any infections. The financial hub is also set to tighten social restrictions again after reporting 34 locally transmitted cases, the most in a single day since the pandemic began, and that was yesterday. Now, the EU's most powerful nations were given a shock defeat over the post of Eurogroup president. Ireland's finance Minister Pascal Donohoe won the ballot, backed by the bloc's smaller members. He defeated the favourite, Spanish Economy Minister Nadia Calvino. She was a preferred candidate for Germany, France, Italy and Spain. And now the spire of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris is set to be restored to its original Gothic design. Since last year's fire, discussion over how it should be restored has been tense. French President Emmanuel Macron made the announcement, putting an end to speculation that it might be rebuilt in a modern style. He also said he wants it completed by 2024, and that's when Paris is hosting the Olympic Games. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Naira.
Oh, I'm going to Paris in August.
Can I come with you?
You're not going to Paris, Naira. They'll have clamped down by then. Don't worry.
No, Roger,
no way.
Are you joking?
No, I have it on good authority. No, they'll come back down. That'll be it. Finish.
I'm actually speechless. I can't believe Roger's just...
Well, I was going to go with Naira. I was just going to invite myself, so now you've ruined the girls' weekend's plans.
I was going to say, vivement le mois d'août, je suis pressée d'être là, but then Roger comes across and completely ruins everything. Okay, thanks, Roger.
Ange plein d'humanité, connaissez-vous l'angoisse, is what I would say to that.
I can't speak French, but it sounds lovely.
Me and Leanne will do the rest of the show. Thanks, Rog. Bye. À tout à l'heure. Okay, thanks, Leanne Gerrans with the world news. Let's get back to the markets then. And joining us down the line is Frédéric Ducrozet, Global Strategist at Pictet Wealth Management. Frédéric, great to have you with us on the show. Thank you so much for joining. I'm still getting over the shock of Roger telling me I won't be able to go to Paris in August, but let's try and talk about these markets. So, a lot of focus on China this week. Comparisons being made to 2015, others saying it's completely different. You don't have the same level of liquidity. It's actually more like the bull market that began at the start of 2014. We see a bit of a pullback in Chinese equities today with state-backed funds selling. Does this rally in Chinese equities have legs in the short to medium term?
We think so, actually. If you look at a number of metrics, I mean, obviously the recent run has been absolutely crazy, and it's like state-run media comments are part of the monetary policy toolkit, right? So we've been there before. I mean, there's a lot of volatility. I wouldn't talk about the very short term, but you can see that in terms of flows, first, it's not only about retail investors. There is more. There's a larger momentum among institutional investors, among banks. It can have legs indeed, and I think that this kind of comments also, I mean, is the signal for the medium term in terms of what kind of measures could be put in place also over coming months and quarters. And then in terms of valuation, when you look at relative valuation metrics, at least relative to some developed markets and other emerging markets, there may be some room to improve. There are risks, so obviously not to be ignored in the relationship with the U.S., obviously, but also with Hong Kong and a number of other geopolitical risks. But medium term, we do like a number of strong companies in China and some sectors that can benefit from this kind of policy-induced boost.
But, Freddie, do you think it goes beyond this to the point where we begin to see a shape of recovery that's clearer, partly maybe just driven by what's happening in Asia and specifically in China?
And that's the point. I mean, the Chinese data have been very strong overall. That's actually quite an exception in the overall picture we've had that is subdued at best, including in other Asian countries where you could see a second wave and perhaps even a third wave later on. So China has been relatively good, I would say, and efficient at managing locally those recent outbreaks that you could see, and the nationwide PMIs, the industrial data, all those data have come in on the stronger side. So you got all the ingredients and all the stars aligned. Again, the run has been so impressive that I wouldn't extrapolate the trend over the very short term, but there is something perhaps more than this recent surge in interest, including from retail investors.
Okay, you're not the first person to have told me this morning, Frédéric, that there are fundamentals actually supporting the rally, even as we keep perhaps referring to it as over-exuberance, and also, of course, driven by commentary in state media, supported even by state-backed funds. But then if we look at fundamentals supporting rallies elsewhere, do you think we're going to see any kind of rotation into the latter half of the year in terms of geographical rotation, either out of the US or even into the US if the situation gets worse with a second wave?
I think everywhere now what is going to be priced in markets, I mean, the consolidation this week is not dramatic. You can see there is some support in markets. We are not talking about the correction yet, so far so good. But one thing and one big risk to the medium-term outlook that is starting to be priced in my opinion, is the idea that you could run the world economy permanently at a lower capacity rate, well below the full capacity rate. And that's reflected, including in this week's data. I mean, the U.S. jobs data have been slightly better than expected, but you are still talking about 16 weeks of initial jobless claims, about 1 million. Same in Europe. We have strong rebound in activity across Euro area states, in the manufacturing sector also, including today in France, but talking about 22% increase in a month, but on a level basis relative to February, we're still down 23%. That's the same idea, I think, everywhere. There could be a rotation, and if there is, we like Europe relative to the US for a number of obvious reasons, and we are then looking for the EU summit next week to get confirmation of that. But that's where, in Europe, perhaps you have both better management of the reopening of the economy overall, and the hope that the fiscal response gets more entrenched, gets more sustained and more efficient at targeting those countries and sectors that need it.
Well, Freddie, let me pick up on that, because we're a week away from the big EU summit, which looks at the European Recovery Fund. A lot of people seeing that as absolutely key to what happens in Europe. Do you think it will go through, I suppose, is the first question. But if it does, what effect do you think it will have?
It's Europe. I've been there before. I would not rule out a disappointment, including a failure at first and at this meeting to agree, even in principle, on the recovery fund. That would be a disappointment, because if, I would say, only because one small country, in particular the Netherlands, we cannot reach a common ground on something that is so important to Europe, then it's a big disappointment. But it's also the way Europe operates. You have to make concessions, you have to save space. The Prime Minister, the Dutch Prime Minister Rutte, is facing the election next spring. That's probably the main obstacle to an agreement right now, because he has to come back at home and, say that he did not give in to the request of Paris, Berlin, and the southern states. But beyond that, I think that we will get there, because it's also in everyone's interest, in the Netherlands' interest, in others' interest, to get this kind of agreement. It is a game changer indeed, in my view. It's the first step, but the first major step towards the fiscal union in the euro area.
Yeah, and I know also at Pictet you have been calling for the ECB to do more in terms of extending PEP. We've just got a minute left, Frédéric. Man Group are saying that bonds, and they're speaking about corporate bonds, are near a tipping point after a debt binge. They say the euphoria around central banks is well priced into credit markets. Do you agree?
That's true. I mean, look at spreads. They are relatively tight already. I don't know how much you can extract from them. You can have a look at more riskier stuff, fallen angels that the ECB is not yet buying, but maybe there's potential here. Down the maturity spectrum as well, you have to take more risk in a world, in a nutshell, to get more yield. That's true, but the ECB will be there, and in my opinion, for a very, very long term.
All right, Frédéric, thank you so much. Frédéric Ducrozet there, global strategist at Pictet Wealth Management. Coming up, stay with us. Matt Miller and Anna Edwards will be joining the programme. They'll be speaking to Janet Henry, HSBC Global Chief Economist. You're listening to Daybreak Europe. This is Bloomberg.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel-good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel-good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry-on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Eurotunnel Le Shuttle is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car, comfortably. Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
The idea is to really hold the economy in suspended animation until we get control of this virus.
We are very much in a picture of monetary dominance.
We will get slower growth. I mean, let's not get confused about that.
We are in a national crisis. I think it is for all parties to pull together.
The euro area is facing an economic contraction of a magnitude and speed that are unprecedented in peacetime.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe on Bloomberg Radio. Good morning from London. I'm Anna Edwards.
And good morning from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller. You're listening to Daybreak Europe on London DAB Digital Radio.
Now, it is Friday morning, Matt, and something has turned European equity markets around, hasn't it? So we started the day in negative territory. The session through Asia was really negative, down by 2% on the Shanghai Composite. After 8 days of gains, the Chinese equity market started to backtrack. State-backed funds started selling. That was seen as a bit of a message to retail investors. That was sort of the Asian vibe. And then coming into the European session, we were also weaker, down by a few tenths of a percent, certainly. And now we're fairly flat actually, on the stock 600. The DAX, one of the better performing markets, and actually the FTSE MIB and the IBEX to the periphery of Europe also doing pretty nicely. So we have been pretty risk on. We were seeing a lot of demand for the dollar. Now we're seeing less demand for the dollar. The dollar is up, but only by around 0.1%. Oil price is $41.90. We are seeing also, though, demand for bonds. So we've got to sort of buy everything vibe just coming into the markets in the last half hour or so. And we see yields on, for example, the US 10-year drifting downwards, down at 0.58 right now. So we're kind of range bound, which is better than we were half an hour ago, if you're
Yeah, although big red hot headline just crossing the Bloomberg terminal that may be concerning. The IEA is warning that oil demand recovery, the expected recovery for oil demand, may be at risk from a resurgence of the coronavirus, a resurgence of the COVID-19 disease. That's the kind of thing that market participants, I think, are watching out for right now. Let's bring in Will Hobbs. He's the CIO at Barclays Wealth Management. He was with us on television earlier today, and we appreciate you sticking around, Will, especially as we get these headlines. And it's something we discussed earlier. Can the rally withstand a second wave? Well, the IEA is saying that an oil demand recovery is at risk from a resurgence of COVID-19. What do you think?
Yeah, Matt, that's an interesting point. Morning again. Happy Friday again. I think the point you'd make here is that, yes, we are seeing some of the U.S. high-frequency activity data start to run into the sand a little bit. That's understandable. You're starting to see reimposed restrictions in some of the sort of worst affected states. I think on the upside, though, we are seeing that, or many are making the point, that the combination of kind of mask-wearing norms, widespread mask use, and limits to large group gatherings, that can both meaningfully impact virus transmission whilst allowing the economy to meaningfully recover. We're seeing that in action in developed Asia and parts of Western Europe. And data is just coming in, sort of rolling in that masks are sort of very useful, cheap, preventative in this situation. You can look at that German study from the Institute of Labour Economics, among many others coming in. So that suggests there is a way, but it's just that some parts of the world aren't quite using them to the extent that they may do in future times, let's say.
It's really interesting to see the way that European equity markets are rallying right now, Will. We're weighed down by much bleaker sentiment, perhaps, in the chart yesterday's session. Yeah, the chart is quite striking. I'm trying to link, as we've had this red headline from the IEA warning oil demand recovery is at risk, and that sounds negative. And I'm trying to think, well, how would that result in a stronger performance for equities? Maybe there's a link through lower oil prices being better for the bits of the economy that are fully operational. That's the only thing I could think of. But we do seem through the last 24 hours, actually through the last week, we seem to have been very preoccupied by what's been going on Chinese equity markets. Will, is that something you're following with interest? Does it have a broader read across?
Yeah, but very interesting, Anna. And I think, what we have seen, there is a bit of a China-specific story here. I think a lot of people have pointed out that it's mainland investors getting involved in mainland stocks. And that, as you're seeing, in the very short term, there are some sort of data points that show there's a little bit of short-term froth in there. But more widely, developed Asia is a region we're interested in from the perspective of a diversified mix of capital markets assets. It gives you exposure not just to important parts of the tech supply chain, which are obviously proving to be quite resilient at the moment, but also in sort of in the economic growth story. You're seeing that Asia is the part of the world that's probably, or developed Asia at least, Korea, Taiwan, and China, are the parts of the world that certainly seem to be furthest along in terms of how to coexist or how to allow the modern industrial economy to roughly coexist with this latest pandemic.
Will, you like debt right now, investment grade and high yield. At least I think you're overweight those two asset classes. Are you not worried about bankruptcies? So many people have talked about the fact that we saw them in Q2, but they're really going to hit harder in Q3.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things you've got to be worried about at the moment, Matt. I agree. It's just to what extent that's already factored in to spreads. And actually, when it comes to return predictability in IG and to a certain extent high yield, downgrade may be a little bit of a red herring. The best naive predictor of IG excess returns is spreads. And spreads are still a little bit elevated relative to pre-crisis levels. And in a sense, you could argue the actions of the central banks around the world since the crisis began. And remember, they have been pulling, teaching grannies to suck eggs here, but they have been pulling hard and fast on levers that it took a long time to pull in the last crisis. And in some senses, that has removed or certainly reduced some of the tail risks associated with investing in this space, particularly as we're looking at a crisis where policymakers may not see the need to preserve moral hazard to the extent of previous crises. That's freeing their arms a little bit. So in a sense, we do still think there's a little bit of juice to squeeze out of this segment. But yeah, it's something that we're definitely watching that.
Yeah, what's happened to moral hazard, Will? It's just a consideration for another time?
It seems to be another crisis. I mean, I think that's fair in many senses. In a way, like in many crises, in many recessions, what you're trying to do is, recessions kind of behave like a particularly strict headmaster or headmistress when you've been behaving badly for a while and maybe been getting away with it and therefore doing more of that behavior. The recession comes along to kind of correct that. And so, in a sense, those are important forces in the long-term functioning of the economy. However, this time around, there were no real, the major school children here were pretty well behaved going into this crisis. This is a blow that came out of the blue. And in a sense, policymakers...
I'm placing an order to buy British pound at 125.84. So order placed to buy British pound at 125.84.
In global news.
Gyms, swimming pools and outdoor venues to reopen this month. That leaves just a few parts of the economy completely shut due to the pandemic. Bloomberg's Charles Capel has the details.
As with most other businesses...
Position open, long, British pound and 125.84.
Cornwall's Minack Theatre will be able to take place, and small indoor performances will be piloted, giving hope for London's West End. The measures come after the government funded a £1.6 billion bailout for the arts and cultural sector in a bid to save it and the thousands of jobs it supports from the brink of collapse. In London, Charles Capel, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Meanwhile, the coronavirus crisis in the United States is showing no signs of abating, with daily cases now at more than 60,000. Florida, California and Texas reported record daily virus deaths. Elsewhere, Hong Kong is closing schools and Australia is tightening inbound travel as governments react to spiking infections. In Singapore, people are heading to the polls as Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's ruling party seeks to extend its 55-year rule. Bloomberg's Philip Hyman says that Lee's party needs a fresh mandate to counter the worst ever recession amidst the coronavirus pandemic.
Special precautions such as temperature screenings, the use of disposable gloves and safe distancing rules are being implemented at the polling booths, which close at 8 p.m. Vote counting will begin immediately afterward, with the final outcome likely to be clear either late Friday or early Saturday. In Singapore, Philip Hyman, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And in Poland, President Andrzej Duda says that he'll never allow compensation for Jewish property lost in World War II. The controversial topic is resurfacing just days before the presidential runoff election. Duda has shifted further to the right as he faces tough competition from the Warsaw mayor, Rafał Trzaskowski. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Caroline Hepker. This is Bloomberg. Matt, Anna.
Caroline, thank you very much. Let's get up to date with the latest sports news then. Here's Sean Pritchard.
Manchester United remain in the hunt for a top 4 Premier League finish.
They're within a point of the Champions League places after winning 3-0 at Aston Villa. Aston Villa remain in the relegation zone 4 points from safety. Bournemouth, who are also in the bottom three, secured a 0-0 draw against Tottenham. Everton drew 1-1 with Southampton at Goodison Park. Leeds are back a point clear at the top of the Championship this morning. They returned to the summit in some style, thrashing struggling Stoke 5-0 last night. The quarter-final and semi-final draws for the Champions League and Europa League will be held later today. Manchester City, Chelsea, Manchester United, Wolves and Rangers all still have to get through last 16 ties in their respective competitions. The quarters, semis and final of the Champions League will all be held behind closed doors in Portugal next month. The same will happen in Germany for the Europa League.
All right, I believe that was your sports there. Now let's get the agenda for you. Your look at the day ahead. Voting is currently underway in Singapore's general election. Polls close at 1 p.m. UK time, with first results rolling in shortly. After that, final results from around 5 p.m. UK time. So if you want to get your Singapore fix, tune in then. Italy is under scrutiny with a sovereign debt rating update by Fitch. That's likely to come after the close of the market today, but watch that closely if you're searching for yield there. And then over the weekend, voting takes place on, again, another election on Sunday in Poland's presidential runoff. Now, this one is actually a contest. The race is currently a dead heat between the incumbent Andrzej Duda and the mayor of Warsaw. So definitely, and one that's closer to home, you're going to want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem as if that's a tighter contest than maybe some international observers had assumed, given it went to the, well, I suppose that's why it's gone to a runoff. So we'll watch what happens over the weekend there, and we'll watch any reaction in markets come Monday. Talking of reaction in markets then, Matt, we have this move to the upside on the Stock 600. It's quite marked, isn't it? It happened around the top of this hour. Suddenly, all European equity markets suddenly moved to the upside. US futures pairing earlier losses as well.
Like bang on the top of the hour, right? At 10 o'clock, if you look at the chart, it just shoots up. So something behind that. We did get that headline from the IEA saying oil market demand maybe not coming back as quickly as they thought. That doesn't seem like a very bullish headline. So still wondering, still looking for reasons for the market jump. Now, still ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, England continues to ease its virus rules with the reopening of gyms. We'll talk to opinion columnist Andrea Felstad about that.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language.
Okay, stop on profit for British pound at 125.86. Right? I'm placing a stop on profit. So if it will go down, I will sell for this price and I will be in £200 of profit. All right?
Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Hi, I'm Bill Hageman, Withum's proud managing partner and CEO. We recognize this disruptive time is unsettling. For the past 45 years, Withum has been committed to helping our clients, our people, and our communities to be in a position of strength with innovative business advisory, tax, and assurance solutions. If you need guidance on business interruption and continuity issues or remote workplace solutions, please visit our website at Withum.com. Together, we can get through these challenging times.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Yvonne Mann.
Joining us is Christopher Martin from Access Partnership. Putting a halt on data requests is one thing. Some say it's just a short-term fix. Are there any ways to guard against this law, or eventually are some of these tech companies just going to have to move their data elsewhere?
Some probably will move elsewhere. I think that it's going to come down to two things really for companies. One, it's a value question. So some internet companies, some of the ones who've already said that they're not going to adhere to any type of data requests, that puts them in the crosshairs, especially American ones that are likely and potentially implicated from not just the law itself, but the ongoing tensions between U.S. and China. Others, I think it's going to be a cost issue. So for not just tech firms, but all the companies that use tech, like the big financial institutions, they built systems under the assumption they can move data in and out of Hong Kong freely. And it's going to remain a question whether they can actually keep doing that in some measure, or if the new law is going to curtail their ability to move data in and out, or other parts of Chinese data policy architecture, if they are transferred to the territory, are going to inhibit them enough or make it costly enough that it's just not worth it from a business perspective.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg QuickTake. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Anne-Marie Horder with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Let's start in Asia this morning, where the frenzy we've seen over the past 8 days in the Chinese stock market hitting a pause as state-backed funds started to sell shares. The CSI 300 closed down 1.8%. The Hang Seng also just closed down 1.8% as well over really fresh concerns over new infections in the city. The government is set to close schools. While European equities started off the day all in the red, we have seen them now on the front foot over the past few minutes. They really turned. The FTSE 100 is up 0.4% alongside the CAC, and the DAX up 0.5% as well. Oil this morning trading at just $39 a barrel on WTI. The top of the hour, the IEA announced that oil demand recovery is at risk because of the resurgence we are seeing in COVID-19 cases around the world. And the 10-year Treasury yield this morning is down 2.6 basis points, 0.59%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash, and here's Caroline Hepker with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Caroline.
Thanks so much, Anne-Marie. The EU's most powerful nations were handed a shock defeat over the post of Eurogroup president. Ireland's finance minister, Pascal Donohoe, has won the ballot, backed by the bloc's smaller members. He defeats the favourite Spanish economy minister, Nadia Calvino. She was the preferred candidate of the larger countries, Germany, France, Italy and Spain. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has to give up his tax returns, but it's unlikely that they will be in the public eye before the November election in the US. The Supreme Court rejected the argument that the president has complete immunity whilst in office. He now has to complete a grand jury request for the records, but the justices blocked congressional access to the information, returning that case to a lower court. And in Hong Kong, schools are closing again on Monday. That's as the coronavirus and cases in the city within the community continue to surge after a stretch without infections in Hong Kong. The financial hub is set to tighten social restrictions again after reporting 34 locally transmitted cases, the most in a single day since the pandemic began. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg QuickTake, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Caroline Hepker. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Well, it is 9:20 here in the city. Time to get into our conversation with Bloomberg Opinion. We're joined by opinion columnist Andrea Felstead, who's been writing about the changes awaiting traditional fitness gyms, the fitness market, thanks to the virus concerns, social distancing costs and competition with a flurry of online options. Let's talk to Andrea now. Andrea, good morning. So to what extent do you think there is enthusiasm to get back to these gyms that are opening up in the UK in a couple of weeks or so, and are opening up on a sort of patchwork basis in other parts of Europe and the US?
And well, research from PwC showed that people who go to the gym are really desperate to get back. The people who like going to the gym want to get back to the gym immediately. More people who go to the gym want to get back to the gym immediately than they want to go to pubs and restaurants.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, even people who don't. You know, I sat, for the most part, during the lockdown, playing Call of Duty and eating Haagen-Dazs by the pint. So it's not about want. Like, I need to get back to the gym. Is there, do you see any trend of that? Because I think a lot of people just stuff their faces.
There will definitely be some of that. The thing is, the other thing that's happened with lockdown is we have so many more options for working out. These online classes, either from gyms or from individual instructors, have proliferated. One analyst counted more than 600 Instagram live classes in one day in the UK. And you think that's going on all around the world. So the big question is, will people go back to the gym, or will they stick with these online workouts that they've got used to?
And all the different gym models are not created equal, are they, Andrea? Just with people at home more and not in their office, whether you have a suburban or city location matters, and the type of demographic you appeal to will matter as well.
That's right. I mean, if you've got lots, a lot of gyms, as we know, are located around offices because people go before work, they go at lunchtime, they go after work. That with people working from home, that's not going to happen. A lot of the budget gyms are more suburban, and they've taken space in shops, in retail parks, places like that. So people might feel more confident going to those. And as for the boutiques, a lot of those are in cities. There were more than 15,000 boutique classes going on in London alone before the pandemic. But they've often got very good instructors, and they, if they can pivot to online and away from that expensive real estate, they could have a chance of flourishing.
I know that my wife's Pilates studio is having real problems. You know, they do just a couple one-on-ones, and they were not allowed to reopen for a long time. And then I know, big storied names like Gold's Gym have filed for bankruptcy. What about, and you talk about online, this shift to online, this pivot to virtual classes. What about something like Peloton? Is that a big winner?
I think it will be a big winner, yes. It's all part of this trend of working out at home rather than in gyms. And Lululemon just bought Mirror, another interactive class. So I think it's all part of the shift away from going to the gym to working out at home. Whether it lasts when we really get back to normal, if we ever get back to normal, but right now, I think they are definitely going to be a winner.
Yeah, I wonder, Andrea, how much we care what we look like when we do these home workouts. Am I just speaking for myself? I mean, the fact that other people can't see you so much, does this have an impact on whether we'll go out and buy new kit?
I think it will. I think when we're in a group class with other people, we do like to look good. And it's really interesting because I cover retail as well, and there are very few fashion trends. But there are lots of fashion trends in athletic wear. One week it's geometric, the next it's really bright colours. So, if nobody is buying so much stuff to look good in their classes, that definitely has knock-on effects for retailers.
I know from experience that you're not as good at sports if you don't have perfect equipment. I mean, it just improves your game so much. Thanks so much, Andrea Felstead, for joining us from the Opinion team. You can check out her work by typing OPIN-GO.
With the Bloomberg Business of Sports report, I'm Michael Barr. The Ivy League canceled sports competition for the upcoming semester because of health and safety concerns about the coronavirus pandemic, becoming the first Division I conference in the U.S. to scrap football. The conference includes Harvard University, Yale University, and Princeton University. The league's executive director, Robin Harris, says no decision has been made about competition in the winter or spring terms, including whether or not we can move fall sports into the spring. The producer of the TV broadcast of La Liga, Spain's top flight soccer league, received a boost to its liquidity after reaching an agreement with banks and shareholders. Joy Media, owner of audiovisual group Media Pro, pulled an extra 110 million euros or $125 million via a loan with its relationship with banks and a commitment from its shareholders to raise capital. And that is a Bloomberg Business of Sports report. I'm Michael Barr.
If trying to figure out the future of your business is keeping you up at night,
Are you seeing it come back at all?
at least you have company.
What do you make of the most recent virus headlines?
How should labor respond?
You're hoping to get political pressure.
Experts, information, breaking news, all day, all night, everywhere.
Do you expect the euro to continue to strengthen? Why even have this hearing?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Who's in your corner? At Commonwealth Financial Network, our advisors would say we are. Our supportive environment lets you be true to yourself, and our culture of accountability means we don't just ask for your feedback. We act on it, so we can deliver the solutions you need to enrich the lives of your clients and build the business you've always dreamed of. Ready to discover the difference? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
NJI.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Eurotunnel Le Shuttle is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car, comfortably. Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel, Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
So, you've been holed up for a while.
Not in here!
The place has got a little, let's say, lived in. At Wix, we'll create your dream kitchen or bathroom from design to show off ready. And to keep everything safe, you can book a free virtual design appointment. Plus, now there's up to 50% off showroom kitchen units. Cure your house embarrassment safely with Wix. For more offer details, see wix.co.uk.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Good morning from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Anna Edwards. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe live from London, where it is just gone 9:30, and live from Berlin, where it's just gone 10:30. And we're an hour and a half into a European trading day, Matt, that looks more positive than anticipated.
Yeah, we have a little internal chat that we share messages with that we don't want to speak out loud. You typed in MLive, and I thought you were pointing to a reason for the rally, because we've been talking about this big pop that we saw in European equities right at 10 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock UK time. We saw European equities swing from losses to gains, and there doesn't seem to be a reason that I can find. And so I thought, Anna, you had found it on the MLive blog. Now I look, MLIV Go is really very helpful a lot of the times, but it's not there. There's no.
I'm waiting, just like you, for our colleagues on the MLive blog to come up with some explanation.
Because what has happened?
Yeah, because most of the overnight session we were preoccupied by China pulling back and deteriorating sentiments around the virus in the US. So something moved us higher.
Indeed, and that is a fascinating story, because the string of gains was incredible in China. The amount of participation of retail investors was maybe worrying. We had a great story on the Bloomberg the other day where one new investor said, I can't lose, and when you start hearing that, alarm bells go off. Now you have a state-backed fund, an insurance fund, essentially a retirement fund, selling shares in the market as a message to investors to kind of back off a little bit, or at least that's how it's been interpreted. And as a result, we had equity indexes down here. They're up now. The FTSE, as we mentioned, gaining up 26 points to 60.76. The DAX up 50 points to 12,540, and the CAC 40 up 15 to 49.35. We do see investors still buying treasuries, so the yield there weighed down to 0.5857. And we see investors buying the Japanese yen against the dollar. You can only get 106.8235 yen for your dollar. But the euro bounced up to 112.86, and the pound had a little bounce as well, still down a bit, but at 125.92, a relatively high level. Oil, meanwhile, coming back down to 41.82. That's Brent crude, after the IEA said the demand recovery may be derailed by a resurgence in COVID-19.
Let's get to some European politics that's been taking place overnight then, Matt. The EU's most powerful nations were given a shock defeat over the post of Eurogroup president. Ireland's Finance Minister Pascal Donohoe won the ballot, backed by the bloc's smaller members. He defeated the favourite, Spanish Economy Minister Nadia Calvino. She was the preferred candidate of Germany, France, Italy and Spain. We're joined now for analysis by Bloomberg's Maria Tezeo, who's with us from Brussels. Maria, good morning. We had some interesting insight into this from our guest in the European Market Open show on Bloomberg TV, who said at the height of the financial crisis, the head of the Eurogroup was a pivotal character, pivotal role, but that actually that role had diminished slightly as leaders, politicians, as prime ministers and chancellors and presidents within Europe had stepped forward to play more of a strong role. So I suppose that is a nice way to go into this question, which is, what are the implications of getting this new leader for the Eurogroup?
Well, Anna, you're very right, and that we're actually seeing this happen as we speak, where European leaders are now taking hold of the real negotiation, which is the recovery fund, and this gets done at an EU state level in terms of it's the leader that will get on the phone and speak to other leaders, not the finance minister, and this doesn't get delegated to a number two. It's really very much the governments that are handling negotiations. So you make a very good point. There has been questions now as to how useful the Eurogroup really is. If you look at all of these meetings, and we cover them every month, at times they do feel very long, and they also feel almost useless. Very little actually gets done. Now, in terms of the politics of what happened yesterday, what's interesting, though, is what didn't happen. The fact that the Spanish prime minister, who is a Brussels insider, who's very well known, who was clearly the front runner, she had the votes of Angela Merkel, she had the votes of the Germans, she had the Italians, the big three, lost those nominations. So it has been, to some extent, a shock to the system, and it has reminded people, officials in Brussels, that there are smaller countries in Europe that do get a vote, that do also have a say in the matter, and it's not the North and the South, the frugals and the not-so-frugals, but also the Eastern Europeans. who kind of flipped in this vote too. So it's really interesting going into the negotiation next week to see that actually having the backing of Germany and France cannot get you the final deal in every case.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest economies, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, all together wanted Calvino here. And what it made me think of immediately, Maria, was if they can't get this through, if the superpowers of Europe, including Angela Merkel, who's, even beyond that, can't get a measly Eurogroup leader elected, how are they going to get the rescue fund passed? I mean, how are they going to get 27 countries to vote to share debt, a tectonic, change in the European relationship?
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just the three biggest countries, but if you actually add up the population, she had the support of around 80% of the citizens that have the euro. So that makes it even more shocking when you look at the overall distribution. But again, it does show you once again that the smaller countries do have a say, and you need, in the case of the Recovery Fund, you will need unanimity from 27 countries. I guess the difference at this point is that, this is the Eurogroup. The Recovery Fund is a much bigger deal, and there was also an interest story here that was personal. Nadia Calvino is someone who has a character, has a temperament that for some perhaps is a little bit too aggressive. In the past, she had made some comments that didn't go well with the smaller nations. She said that some of these countries are small, they don't really have a lot of say, they don't really carry a lot of weight, and that, of course, rubbed them the wrong way. So there was almost a personal element going into this vote. The Recovery Fund, we're being told it's a very different story, really 500 billion euros at stake, and it's the European economy that we're talking about here. Nonetheless, once again, it really highlights that it's not easy, and the fact that the Germans want something doesn't mean it's always going to happen. This is going to take a very long negotiation, and again, every leader needs to show that they fight for their taxpayers.
Okay, we close position on British pound at 125.86. Profit £200.
Start with Singapore, which heads to the polls today. That's as the ruling party seeks to extend its 55-year rule of the city-state. Polling booths are taking special precautions, including temperature screenings and the use of disposable gloves. Key issues in the campaign include jobs and the economy, which is set to contract as much as 7% this year amidst the coronavirus crisis. Meanwhile, in another election in Poland, voters are heading to the polls again in a second-round presidential vote this Sunday. It comes after the president, Andrzej Duda, lost his first-round lead over the centrist Warsaw mayor. Bloomberg's Marek Stalinsky reports now.
The past 2 months have been like a roller coaster ride, with pro-European camp clashing with the conservative and Polonocentric face of the nation. Stakes for Jarosław Kaczyński, a de facto leader of Poland, are as high as ever. After failing to win re-election in the first round, Duda has tilted further to the right to attract ultra-conservative voters. Still, 2 days before the vote, opinion polls show the incumbent and Warsaw mayor, Rafał Trzaskowski, running neck-to-neck. In Warsaw, Marek Strzelecki, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
In breaking news about the global coronavirus pandemic, Hong Kong has reported the second highest daily local virus cases in all in the last few moments. Meanwhile, the crisis in the United States is showing no signs of abating. Daily cases have gone over 60,000 for the first time. Texas has reported a record number of virus deaths for a third day in a row. Meanwhile, here in England, we have the go-ahead for gyms, swimming pools and outdoor venues actually to reopen this month. That leaves just a few parts of the economy still shuttered because of the pandemic. Bloomberg's Charles Capel has all the details. Right, hopefully we'll bring you that sort a little bit later on from Charles Capel about what's going on here in the UK, but relatively good news that things are opening up here in England. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Caroline Hepker. This is Bloomberg. Matt.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Caroline Hepker. Now, coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak, HSBC thinks the global economy is not yet out of the woods. We'll discuss with their global chief economist, Janet Henry, next. And a reminder that you can listen back to a selection of our interviews at BloombergRadio.com or on your Bloomberg Business app. I will also remind you, if you're listening on Sirius XM or if you're listening on London DAB, that's fantastic. If you ever find yourself away from your car, that's where I have my only digital radio access, try listening on the app. You can use the Bloomberg Business app to listen to Bloomberg Radio.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba, please be done. Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied.
When your tenants have an overflowing block sink and you've got a busy day ahead, superheroes crashing through the wall isn't going to help anyone. With Direct Line Landlord Emergency added to your policy, we're on it to send a rather super drainage engineer in 4 hours before you've tucked into your lunch. We can also assemble plumbers, locksmiths, glaziers and electricians. Search Direct Line Landlord Emergency. We're on it. Direct Line. Residential properties. Optional add-on up to 1,500 per caller. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rocked that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details visit costa.co.uk/terms.
Eurotunnel Le Shuttle is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car, comfortably. Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not get road ready with a free car check worth £15 at all our stores and garages? With 25,000 weekly slots available at 700 locations, you can count on us to get you safely back on the road. Or even back beside the seaside. From MOTs to tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
The big Volkswagen event is now on. If you're after an approved used Volkswagen, for a limited time, you can buy one with 2 years warranty, 2 years MOT cover, 2 years roadside assistance, and 2 services all included at 8.9% APR representative. Hello, sir. Do any take your fancy?
I need to sit down.
The big Volkswagen event. With every type of car on offer, you may have trouble choosing. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan until 12th of July. At participating retailers on used Volkswagens aged between 90 days and 60 months only. Indemnities may be required. Warranty valid for vehicles up to 100,000 miles at activation. MOT cover is up to 2 years and is underwritten by UK General Insurance Limited. Volkswagen Finance. Contact your local retailer.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished. With over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
How do we control coronavirus now? This is Scott. He's a nurse.
NHS Test and Trace helps stop the spread of the virus in our communities. If you've got symptoms, even mild ones, get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we can trace the people you've been in contact with and contain the virus. So get tested and protect each other.
To get a test, go to nhs.uk/coronavirus or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Anne-Marie Horder with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Bit of a mixed picture across global equity markets this morning. In Asia, Chinese stock market hitting a pause after 8 days of gains. State-backed funds selling shares, CSI 300 and the Hang Seng. Both of those stock markets closed down 1.8%. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong, a little bit different story there in terms of the government is set to close schools after a spike of new infections. European equity started off the day on the back foot, but now we are in the green across all the major indices. FTSE 100 up 0.3%, CAC 40 as well as higher, as well as the DAX up nearly 0.3% this morning. Oil, WTI and Brent both lower this morning, down more than 1%. WTI trading under $39 a barrel this morning. The IEA just announced that oil demand recovery is at risk because of the resurgence and the spiking numbers in some parts of around the world we are seeing of COVID-19. And this morning, the 10-year Treasury yield down 3.6 basis points, 0.57%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Caroline Hepker with more what's going on around the world. Good morning, Caroline.
Thanks so much, Anne-Marie. The US is planning action against France in the long-running feud over a tech tax. Sources tell Bloomberg that a tariff list will be released and it'll be in the ballpark of $500 to $700 million in goods. The items targeted could include French wine, cheese and handbags. The US may decide to delay bringing in the duties until France starts collecting the tax, which happens later this year. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has to give up his tax returns, but it's unlikely that they will be in the public domain before the November presidential election. The Supreme Court rejected the argument that the president has complete immunity whilst in office. He now has to comply with a grand jury request for the records, but the justices blocked congressional access to the information, returning that case to a lower court. And finally, the spire of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris is set to be restored to its original Gothic design. Since last year's fire, discussion over how its restoration about how it would be restored has been pretty tense. The French President Emmanuel Macron made the announcement, putting an end to the speculation that it actually might be rebuilt in a modern style. He now also says that he wants it completed by 2024 when Paris is hosting the Olympics. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Caroline Hepker. This is Bloomberg. Matt, so the cathedral being rebuilt in Paris.
Yes, obviously incredibly important. When was the first time you saw Notre Dame?
Oh, I can't remember. I lived in France as a very young child, so probably then.
Okay. I'll never forget. My parents took us there when I think I was 17 or 18. And it's one of those things I'll just never forget. And I forget pretty much everything that happened before I was 40. So that's the interesting.
It affected other people in the same way, obviously, because of what was it, $1 billion that was given in reconstruction funds, after that horrific fire. That actually, Leanne Gerrans reminded me this morning only happened a year ago.
Yeah, wow. I do hope they get it done, and I'd rather have them do a good job than a quick job. So hopefully Emmanuel Macron is focusing on quality control. I know one person who is focused on quality control. John Tucker has been delivering tremendous shows. I guess Nathan Hager has been delivering tremendous shows, and John Tucker
I've just been listening.
Is filling in for him today.
Actually, no, let's see. I am filling in for Karen Moscow. Nathan is filling in. I don't know. I can't keep. You need a scorecard. But anyway.
Well, I just want to say, I've been able to listen all week, and I've just been loving it.
Well, good. I'll put you in the Rolodex.
Thanks.
Among our top stories, daily coronavirus cases in the U.S. unfortunately passing 60,000. We're going to ask the question, are stocks overvalued, cheap, or what? Earnings season. Yeah, remember that? That starts next week. Can we just write this one off? We're going to speak with Bloomberg equity strategist Gina Martin-Adams this morning. Always a great guest. Beyond stocks, we're going to examine the credit markets, too. We're going to speak with Lale Tabjali of J.O. Hambro. And President Trump, re-election on his mind as the coronavirus cases surge, especially in Florida. He's on the road this weekend for a campaign rally. Where else? In Florida. Also, what's next? Locust, New York City, under a tropical storm warning this morning. Heavy downpours, thrashing wind in store for the Northeast from Tropical Storm Faye. I had my son trying to clean out the gutters yesterday in anticipation of the heavy rains. That was like trying to, push an elephant over the fence.
Getting your son to do some chores?
Just Matt, You don't have kids yet, right?
It sounds like very effective homeschooling, if I could chip in.
No, his idea
very
of
broad curriculum
homeschooling is to sleep till about 12 noon. So.
Good for him. Yeah. Good for him. Those are the days.
I remember those days.
Well, as I said, I can't remember pretty much anything.
So you had a good time.
But it was okay, yeah. I do remember listening to this program. It's been fantastic all week, so I'm looking forward to hearing it again today. John Tucker coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak. You can listen. I've been listening on my Bloomberg app on my mobile phone, but you can listen also on Sirius XM. If you're tuned in on London DAB digital radio, however, you will hear Bloomberg Surveillance.
Matt, let's get to our last conversation of this hour. We're now joined by somebody from HSBC, and HSBC out with some research saying that they think that the global economy is not yet out of the woods. The health situation and the economic situation cannot be disentangled. We're joined now by HSBC's global chief economist, Janet Henry. Janet, good morning to you. I wonder if you could give us your latest thinking then on the trajectory of recovery, the path of recovery. And that can be the global economy, but if that's just too much for one shortish answer, then let's just do Europe.
No, I think you can say it for the world, really, is that when you get the turning point, the initial turning point after an implosion in activity, you're going to get some kind of a bounce. But there are certain parts of the economy that come back quite quickly, industrial production and even consumption of goods. But after that initial V, and if that takes you back to 80 or 90% of the economy, the improvement thereafter is likely to moderate in pace. But where we can see a difference is in some countries where the pandemic is considered to be under control and people are confident about embarking on, consumer-facing activities to a larger degree. You will see a more convincing continuation of the recovery. But in regions of the world where actually cases are still rising or renewed lockdowns are coming into place, obviously the pace of improvement thereafter is going to be more modest.
Well, then how concerned are you about the U.S.? Because, even the U.K. Looks good compared to what we're reading about in the U.S. every day.
Yeah, this is a good question because obviously globally the number of infections is still rising, and in a number of countries, but most notably the US, in a number of states, it really is rising quite quickly in states that contain a very large population. So we don't expect to see renewed nationwide lockdowns coming through. Anything we're seeing is more a stalling of the reopening.
Was there ever a nationwide lockdown?
No, I don't think there was, actually, which is in many ways where the surprise on our forecast came from. You know, we thought Q2 in the US was going to be worse than actually appears to have been the case, because it's quite clear there was not the degree of social distancing across the entire United States as we'd seen in New York. And I think that's what we see. The US seems to be more a state-by-state approach, but what's happening globally is starting to affect confidence levels at the aggregate level. But you also see that even in countries that have really been quite successful with the pandemic. Australia's been quite interesting. The renewed lockdown at a much lower level of infections, even in Europe than is currently the case in some European countries. You've seen the filtering of consumer-facing services, not just in Victoria, not just the state that's closed down, but you've seen it in Queensland, you've seen it in New South Wales. So in some countries, it's having nationwide effects on confidence, even where you've got localised lockdowns. The US is a bit different, but clearly quite worrying with infection rates at these levels.
It seemed very clear right from the beginning, Janet, didn't it, that when we were talking about this just in China, that there was the extent of the impact of the disease itself, and then there was the policy response in terms of lockdowns and what that did as a sort of secondary layer on top. In terms of policy response fiscally now, we're sort of very much into that phase. In the US, do you have further expectations of fiscal stimulus this year?
Yes, we do. I mean, it's quite clear that after the recess ends, so probably after July 20th, there will be further discussions with the hope of getting through a fiscal stimulus quite quickly. And I think the renewed rise in infection rates in large parts of the country adds impetus to that discussion. We don't know the detail of it. Obviously, the Republicans are more in favour with renewed cash handouts. The Democrats are more in favour of continuing the COVID-related extra unemployment insurance for longer than is currently considered to be the case when that expires on July the 31st. So we don't know the detail, but we are expecting another round of fiscal stimulus before too long, and certainly ahead of the election.
Janet, it's been great having you with us today. I got to tell you, I normally, after this, I listen to the U.S. programming so I can continue listening to radio. I'm going to switch over to TV today to watch more from you because I know you're going to go on Bloomberg Surveillance and continue the conversation with Tom and Francine. So Janet Henry of HSBC, she's their global chief economist. You'll hear more from her on London DAB Digital Radio. This is Bloomberg.
Portfolio analyst powered by
When your tenants have a burst pipe and you've got a busy day ahead, superheroes crashing through the wall isn't going to help anyone. With Direct Line Landlord Emergency added to your policy, we're on it to send a rather super plumber in 4 hours before you've tucked into your lunch. We can also assemble locksmiths, glaziers, electricians and drainage engineers. Search Direct Line Landlord Emergency. We're on it. Direct Line. Residential properties. Optional add-on up to $1,500 per caller. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Eurotunnel Le Shuttle is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car, comfortably. Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
The big Volkswagen event is now on. If you're after a new Volkswagen, we offer to pay your first 3 months finance payments and an additional £500 to £1,000 contribution to your deposit at 3.8% APR representative. Hello, sir. Do any take your fancy?
Well, yes, a new Golf or T-Cross. A Tiguan. No, Passat. Oh, I need to sit down.
Here, have a seat.
The big Volkswagen event. With every type of car on offer, you may have trouble choosing. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan until 12th of July. Excludes e-golf at participating retailers only. Minimum 46 months to receive 3 months finance payments. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance. Contact your local retailer to book an appointment.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Friday, July 10th, 2020. Coming up this hour.
Daily U.S. coronavirus cases passed 60,000 for the first time.
Florida, Texas, and California report record deaths from the virus.
New York City cancels large events through September to stem the spread.
And New Jersey takes measures to slow a rising transmission rate.
A weak tropical storm will impact the tri-state area, plus President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, is back in prison. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. The latest on the sale of the Mets, and Tiger Woods announces his return to the PGA Tour.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm John Tucker. Bloomberg Daybreak being brought to you by Witham, a forward-thinking advisory and accounting firm helping clients be in a position of strength in the new reality of business. Learn about their innovative solutions by visiting Witham.com.
And U.S. futures are lower on this Friday morning. It is 5:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are lower by 14 points. Dow futures down 137. NASDAQ futures down 34. The DAX in Germany up 0.25%. The CAC in Paris is higher by 0.2%. 10 years up 11/30 seconds. The yield 0.57%. 2-year yield 0.14%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.9%, down 75 cents at $38.87 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4% or $7.90 at $18.11.70 an ounce. The data check is brought to you by SEI. Crises and challenges highlight the power of partnership and character. Work for the common good. One community, SEI. Go to SEIC.com/banks. John?
Nathan, for the first time, daily coronavirus cases in the U.S. have passed 60,000.
Everybody says, we have so many cases. That's because we test so many people.
That's the president's reasoning for the increase. He spoke late yesterday. Around the same time, in Florida, Arizona, Texas, and California reported record deaths from the virus.
And Arizona is seeing its highest number of infections in 6 days. It comes on the heels of what Governor Doug Ducey calls a brutal month of June.
What we have had since are continuing weeks of increasing positivity. So our positivity is way too high.
Ducey is now tying the increase directly to reopening efforts.
The more activity that is happening in our economy, the more the spread will continue.
Now the governor is telling Arizona residents to stay home. He's also delaying a decision on whether to open classrooms for the new school year.
In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing ahead with plans for in-person classes.
I want our kids to be able to minimize this education gap that I think is developed.
DeSantis says Florida is leading the way with virtual learning, but it's still not enough.
You talk to teachers about what happens over the summer and how there's a summer lag. Well, geez, now we're from mid-March all the way now. And in spite of good efforts with the online, it's just not the same.
Record deaths in Florida are also being accompanied by record hospitalizations. Miami-Dade County reports the highest number of patients in intensive care since April.
In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is canceling large events that require a permit through September.
It is not time for large gatherings. Just like we said we would not have indoor dining in New York City because we saw the really painful reality in Texas and Florida and other places.
De Blasio hopes the move can free up room for outdoor dining and the city's Open Streets program, which expands public spaces for residents.
We've had a lot of success making New York City healthier. We got to really stick to that plan.
New York will deny permits for any event larger than one city block, although demonstrations, religious events, and news conferences are exempt.
In New Jersey, worries remain over a transmission rate that's creeping up from previously low levels.
The rate of transmission
has gotten a little bit uncomfortably high for us, just over 1. Today it improved slightly.
We spoke exclusively with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy late yesterday. He's joined with New York and Connecticut and asking travelers from high infection states to self-quarantine.
You could do a fair amount, but it is the United States of America, and one of the things we can't do constitutionally is to stop people from another state at the border. I never thought I'd say this, but I'd love to be able to build a wall around us.
While there's no plans for a wall in the works, Murphy says the state is taking other measures to stem the spread of the virus.
We're building out a large community core of contact tracers. They were able, for instance, to track down some folks who have been at a wedding in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hoboken had a bunch of folks returning from hotspots. So far, it has worked, but it is not a perfect system. And again, we have to appeal to personal responsibility.
On Wednesday, New Jersey's transmission rate reached 1.1%. That's the number of people each COVID-positive person infects. Just weeks ago, the rate stood at 0.6%.
Now, the jump in cases had investors selling stocks yesterday. We saw a similar reaction in Asia overnight, with China leading declines. Bloomberg's Juliet Sally joins us from Singapore with details. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Nathan and John. The Shanghai Composite fell for the first time in 9 sessions after 2 state-backed Chinese funds said they plan to trim their holdings, a sign Beijing may be trying to cool the recent rally, which has added $1 trillion to equity values this week alone. The CSI 300 closed down 1.8%, retreating slightly from 5-year highs. Elsewhere, automakers and retailers weighed on Japan's main index amid concerns a resurgence in virus cases there will derail the economic comeback. The Nikkei 225 down by 1% in Tokyo. A resurgence in virus cases in Australia saw the ASX 200 fall to its lowest level this month. And here in Singapore, stocks fell and the currency was slightly weaker as Singaporeans head to the polls. In Singapore, Juliet Saleh, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Juliet, thanks. And when it comes to the economic recovery from the pandemic, estimates continue to slow. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic says a return to pre-crisis levels could take as long as 2 years.
The models that I'm looking at right now suggest that by the end of the year, we'll be have more jobs and more growth than we have right now. But we won't be at a level that is equal to where we were pre-crisis. I don't think we're going to be at that stage until mid-2021 or maybe later into 2022.
Bostic expects bumps throughout the recovery as we learn more about the virus and as Americans find new ways to do business safely.
And S&P futures are lower by 14 points now. Dow futures down 140. NASDAQ futures down 32 points. 10-year up 11/30 seconds. The yield 0.57%. The euro at 1.1293 against the dollar. The yen at 106.77. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
And it's now 5:07 on Wall Street, and let's get news from around the world this morning. We say good morning to Bloomberg's Michael Barr.
John, thank you very much. It's not a powerful tropical storm, but a system is expected to impact the tri-state area later today. Bloomberg meteorologist Rob Carolyn has the latest on this rainmaker.
Michael, we have an area of low pressure near the eastern shore of Maryland. The National Hurricane Center has decided to call this Tropical Storm Faye. What it is an area of low pressure that's got tropical moisture associated with it. It's going to go up the Hudson River Valley tonight. That's going to lead to rain heavy at times developing across the tri-state area today. It'll become breezy, and that rain will continue into tonight. Right now, it looks like most areas will see a 1 to 3 inch rainfall from this system as it lifts northward. There could be a few spots, though, that do a little bit better than that. Look for some wind gusts over 30 miles an hour. Michael?
Thank you very much, Rob. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio was among those painting Black Lives Matter in big yellow letters in front of the Manhattan's Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue.
Folks today felt jubilant and triumphant. We were not denigrating Fifth Avenue. We were liberating Fifth Avenue by putting those crucial words right there in front of President Trump's building.
Trump responded via Twitter that the mural would denigrate the luxury avenue. Despite President Trump losing some of his fight to keep his tax records secret, the White House is claiming yesterday's Supreme Court decision was a victory. The Supreme Court ruled a New York prosecutor can get access to the president's tax records, but asked a lower court to first revisit the details. President Trump reacted.
It's a pure witch hunt. It's a hoax, just like the Mueller investigation was a hoax that I won, and this is another hoax.
It's unlikely Trump's records will be exposed before the election. President Trump's former personal lawyer is back behind bars after refusing the terms of home confinement. Michael Cohen, who is serving a 3-year sentence for campaign finance violations and other crimes, was released on a furlough in May and allowed to return to his home in Manhattan for fear of catching COVID-19 in prison. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons says Cohen was on furlough pending formal placement in home confinement, but declined to agree to its conditions, which include electronic monitoring and getting approval for interviews. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. And time now, the Burton Accountants and Advisors Sports Report. And we say good morning to John Stashower.
All right, good morning, John. The Nets and 21 other NBA teams are in Orlando. The bubble experiment is underway. Major League Soccer teams got to Orlando earlier, and that league has seen 2 teams, Chicago and Nashville, have to stop playing because so many of their players have tested positive for COVID. NBA teams will be practicing this weekend. The games begin at the end of July. The depleted Nets, who've had 5 players opt out, have added another veteran, Michael Beasley, second pick of the draft back in 2008. This will be his 8th team. MLS back playing. NYCFC lost to Philadelphia 1-0. The PGA Tour is in Muirfield, Ohio this week and next. The bigger tournament is next week's Memorial. Tiger Woods is going to play. It'll be his first tournament since mid-February. An update on the sale of the Mets. Hedge fund king Steve Cohen, whose $2.6 billion deal to buy fell through, could be back in the game now that the preconditions are no longer in place. The price tag has also gone down. Well, the New York Post reports that if all bids are close, owner Jeff Wilpon would prefer to sell to the group that includes Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez. One NFL wide receiver reacted to comments made by another, the Patriots' Julian Edelman, after the Eagles' Deshaun Jackson made anti-Semitic remarks.
I'm proud of my Jewish heritage. And for me, it's not just about religion. It's about community and culture as well. I'm unusual because I didn't identify as Jewish until later in my life. Whenever I encountered hatred, it never really felt like it was aimed at me. It was only after I was part of this community that I learned how destructive hate is.
Edelman invited Jackson to together visit the Holocaust Museum in Washington. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. John?
All right, John, thanks a lot. And a programming note, tune in tonight for the Bloomberg Business Sports Show when we speak with Cincinnati Reds pitcher Trevor Bauer. He tells us about contentious negotiations that finally led to a deal to play baseball this season, plus what the game's going to look like in the midst of a pandemic. Catch that conversation tonight at 7, tomorrow at 11, right here on Bloomberg Radio.
President of the Jewish Communal Fund, Zoya Raines, and her husband, Robert Friedman, Jewish activists and philanthropists, talk about why they chose the Jewish Communal Fund for their charitable giving.
As very busy working parents, we wanted to focus more on the charity part of it and wanted to focus more on our children and less on the administration.
The Jewish Communal Fund is one of the oldest and largest donor-advised funds, but at the same time, they're totally up to date and have state-of-the-art systems for us to access and manage our contributions online. The assets in our fund at the JCF grow tax-free, so we can generate more charitable dollars to support the charities that we care about most.
Let JCF minimize your taxes and maximize your charitable giving.
We're incredibly passionate about our charity, and the JCF allows us to focus more on the charity and less on the administration and the headaches.
For more information about Jewish Communal Fund, visit our website at jcfny.org and request a new fund kit.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
When your tenants have a burst pipe and you've got a busy day ahead, superheroes crashing through the wall isn't going to help anyone. With Direct Line Landlord Emergency added to your policy, we're on it to send a rather super plumber in 4 hours before you've tucked into your lunch. We can also assemble locksmiths, glaziers, electricians and drainage engineers. Search Direct Line Landlord Emergency. We're on it. Direct Line. Residential properties. Optional add-on up to $1,500 per caller. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Here's Yvonne Mann.
Joining us is Christopher Martin from Access Partnership. Putting a halt on data requests is one thing. Some say it's just a short-term fix. Are there any ways to guard against this law, or eventually are some of these tech companies just going to have to move their data elsewhere?
Some probably will move elsewhere. I think that it's going to come down to two things really for companies. One, it's a value question. So some internet companies, some of the ones who've already said that they're not going to adhere to any type of data requests, that puts them in the crosshairs, especially American ones that are likely and potentially implicated from not just the law itself, but the ongoing tensions between U.S. and China. Others, I think it's going to be a cost issue. So for not just tech firms, but all the companies that use tech, like the big financial institutions, they built systems under the assumption they can move data in and out of Hong Kong freely. And it's going to remain a question whether they can actually keep doing that in some measure, or if the new law is going to curtail their ability to move data in and out, or other parts of Chinese data policy architecture, if they are transferred to the territory, are going to inhibit them enough or make it costly enough that it's just not worth it from a business perspective.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm Nathan Hager. European stocks are fluctuating this morning as investors weigh positive corporate news against China's stalling equity rally and a rising number of coronavirus cases. Treasuries are on the rise and futures on Wall Street are falling. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are lower by 19 points. Dow futures down 183. NASDAQ futures down 38. European stocks, as we say, are fluctuating. 10-year is up 13.30 seconds now. The yield 0.56%. 2-year yield 0.13%. NYMEX crude oil now down 2.5%, down 99 cents, $38.64 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.5% or $9.60 at $18.1340 an ounce. The euro is at 1.1290 against the dollar, the British pound at 1.2601, and the yen is at 106.72. Awaiting inflation data this morning. It's out at 8:30 Wall Street time with the release of the June Producer Price Index, and the USDA's World Agricultural Supply and Demand Report comes out at noon today. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. For the first time, daily coronavirus cases in the U.S. have passed 60,000. Governor Doug Ducey says testing will be ramping up in Arizona as the state deals with a high positivity rate. The Boy Scouts of America, which filed for bankruptcy in February, is expected to face at least 10,000 sex abuse claims in its bankruptcy. That's according to a lawyer representing victims. A major announcement from the Big Ten concerning fall sports. The conference said fall sports teams, including football, will play only conference opponents.
It is the first Power 5 conference to announce an adjustment to its college football season because of the coronavirus pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John.
Michael, thank you. We are live for the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, where it is 5:20 on Wall Street. We had this headline cross a little earlier on the Bloomberg. The U.S. 5-year bond yields dropping to a record low of 0.261%. So with that kind of yield, what's a fixed income investor to do? Let's say good morning to our first guest this morning, Lalit Abjali of J.O. Hambro. You made it to Friday. Are you going to tell me to all in on corporate debt because the yields with the government stuff is so low?
Well, first of all, good morning. It's very hard, and I think it's challenging too, because one of the things I think people also forget is, with an aging population in the U.S., with the increasing retirement, it's a challenge for the savers. Normally, I think, we all grow up to say, you get rewarded as you save, but in this case, you're almost getting punished to save because you're not earning much. It's an incredible challenge.
Now, should I be buying for the price increases or for the yield?
Well, they go hand in hand a little bit, but I think what's interesting is, in the fixed income world, this is why if you look into the flows into mutual funds or the ETFs, you will see a massive increase into investment grade funds, into high yield funds, because people are so desperate for the yield. On the flip side, it is exactly the same argument why the TINA, there's no alternative argument, exists for equities. So equities with strong balance sheets that are dividend paying. I mean, this is why you're seeing this massive divergence. And of course, it's all enabled by the central banks.
Is it a buyer's market or, well, it sounds like it's a seller's market?
It's a seller's market. It's a seller's market for sure. Absolutely. I think it's a buyer's market for the challenged sectors, especially in high yield. So if you're in that travel, lodging, leisure, entertainment areas where, it's unclear what your future cash flows are going to be, where the visibility of the future is bleak, that's where it becomes a little bit of a buyer's market, but predominantly it's a seller's market. Well, and it's simply, go ahead.
You bring up that high yield. Can you do fundamental analysis in a market like this when the central bank is buying? I mean, do credit ratings matter that much at all?
Sadly, in the near term, when you have the elephants in the room, which are the central banks, it matters a lot less. But I think you have to take the long-term approach and look forward, so especially for high yield, where defaults matter and you can actually get capital loss, capital impairment. You have to look through the fundamental analysis.
Well, if you're looking also to the long term, I'm going to raise the question of long-term inflation outlook, and that's certainly going to eat into your investment. What is your long term? And by that I mean, if you look at the 5-year forwards.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, I think so. We debate this very heavily. I think clearly in the near term, the supply shock and the fall in demand is certainly deflationary. But one of the challenges, and I think people point out how central banks have not been able to engineer inflation. But one of the challenges that we struggle with, and this is a hot debate for us, and I don't really have an answer, but if you look at sort of the debt that's accumulated on the government balance sheets, what alternative do you have if you can't just inflate it away?
Yeah, I don't want to get too in the weeds here. I'm a little curious as to what the central bank is buying. Could they have had a bigger impact, or they're purchasing in the secondary market, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're buying predominantly. They're buying investment grade rated corporates, and they bought some ETFs, including some of the high yield ones. So they have a little bit over $10 billion. It's $10.7 billion now as of yesterday. What's interesting about the central bank is, I think what people forget is they're doing everything they can to ease the monetary conditions so that transactions can happen, right? So you have a willing buyer and a willing seller, which we didn't have for a period in March.
Yeah, it also raises the question
critical.
at some point down the road, are we are propping up some sort of march of the zombies? Only about 20 seconds left.
Yeah, we certainly are. But today, the liquidity and that transmission mechanism is overpowering everything. It's called kick the can a bit further down the road.
Why did I know you were going to say that? Lolly, always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Lolly Tabjali of J.O. Hambro. And again, the 5-year bond yield's dropping to a record low of 0.26%. So take that back drop into consideration. As far as equities go, Dow futures right now, they are down 171 points. S&P futures, 17 points lower. And the NASDAQ E-mini futures, they are down 33 points. You are listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Futures point to a move lower at the open after a mostly lower close yesterday amid ongoing reports of a rise in coronavirus cases. The Dow tumbled 361 points, the S&P fell 18, but the NASDAQ was higher with technology again powering gains up 55 points. Air travel is slowly picking up globally thanks to a recovery in domestic flights, with countries in the Asia-Pacific region accounting for half of the top 20 markets. Travel data provider Cirium says Vietnam, Indonesia, and South Korea are the only countries to show growth in domestic air travel in July compared with the same month last year. But China and the U.S. dominate in sheer numbers of flights. Carlsberg says the slump in Western European beer sales has moderated, but the outlook for summer beer sales is uncertain as the COVID-19 outbreak expands in Russia, one of its largest markets. Carlsberg is taking a hit from lower prices because beer sold at retail locations usually costs less than it does at the bar. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Eurotunnel Le Shuttle is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel Le Shuttle, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car comfortably. Then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel, Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
What would the world be like if we listened more? At Honda, our ears are always open to new ideas. Oh, there's one now, knocking on our eardrum. What's that? What if we made a car with cameras instead of wing mirrors? A robot mower, that knows when it's time to cut the grass. A self-balancing motorcycle. And what if by 2022, all of our mainstream cars were hybrid or electric? Great idea. Thanks, ears. Honda, the power of dreams.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished, with over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm John Tucker.
I'm Nathan Hager. We're just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures are lower after daily coronavirus cases in the U.S. passed 60,000 for the first time. Arizona is seeing its highest number of infections in 6 days, prompting a warning from Governor Doug Ducey.
People are safer at home, and if they don't have any place to go, stay home.
Ducey's now tying increased infections directly to reopening efforts. He's telling restaurants to limit capacity to 50% and delaying a decision on whether to open classrooms for the school year.
In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing ahead with plans for in-person classes.
There's something to be said for being in school, seeing people you know, growing up like a normal kid.
That's despite another day of record deaths in Florida. Record fatalities also being reported in Texas, Arizona, and California.
In New Jersey, worries remain over a transmission rate that's creeping up from previously low levels. Governor Phil Murphy has mandated face masks in public and will enforce the measure with fines.
We expect folks to do the right thing here. And do we reserve the right to warn them, to summons them, to fine them potentially? Absolutely, we have to.
On Wednesday, New Jersey's transmission rate reached 1.1. That's the number of people each COVID-positive person infects. Just weeks ago, the rate stood at 0.6.
The jump in coronavirus cases had investors selling stocks yesterday. We saw a similar reaction in Asia overnight. Shares in China led declines after government-owned funds announced plans to trim holdings. Well, traders are taking that as a warning the country's equity boom has gone too far.
And in Washington, an announcement on tariffs could come today in the battle between France and the White House over taxes on big tech. Here with that story is Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
Sources say the tariff list to be released will be in the ballpark of $500 to $700 million. The items targeted could include levies on French wine, cheeses, and handbags. One source says the U.S. may delay the implementation of the duties until France starts collecting its tax later this year. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Charlie, thank you. Futures continue to fall with S&P futures down 14 points, Dow futures lower by 151, NASDAQ futures down 23 points. The DAX in Germany up 0.25%, the CAC in Paris higher by 0.1%, 10-year up 13.30 seconds, the yield 0.57%. NYMEX crude oil is down 2.5% or $1 lower at $38.62 a barrel. The euro is at 1.1293 against the dollar, the yen at 106.72. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
Where it's 5:33 on Wall Street, and time to get news from around the world this morning. We say good morning to Bloomberg's Michael Barr.
John, thank you very much. It is not a strong tropical storm, but it is expected to be a rainmaker in the tri-state area. Bloomberg meteorologist Rob Carolyn has the latest.
Michael, we have an area of low pressure that's bringing rain to the Jersey coast. It's going to come up into the tri-state area today. The Hurricane Center has decided to call this Faye, and that's why the tropical storm warnings are in effect. It's not a true tropical storm. It's an area of low pressure that's got tropical moisture associated with it. So what we'll see is rain heavy at times in the tri-state area this morning. It'll continue to the afternoon. It'll become breezy, especially along the coast where we could see gusts over 30 miles an hour. System's going to move fairly quickly. That should limit the rainfall about 1 to 3 inches. Watch out for some localized roadway flooding later today. Michael?
Thank you very much, Rob. In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is canceling large events that require a permit through September. De Blasio says he doesn't understand with some of the decisions being made in other states after his city was widely used as an example of how bad it can get.
Anyone who watched what happened in New York City would have to be really sober about saying we're not going to risk lives and ignore the science. But unfortunately, a lot of politicians decided it was more important to do what Donald Trump said.
Also yesterday, de Blasio helped to paint a Black Lives Matter mural on Fifth Avenue right at the Trump Tower's doorstep. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says there were 28 new COVID-19 deaths yesterday and 354 new cases. Murphy, speaking to Bloomberg, says, as for the state's economic impact from COVID-19, we're going to need revenue boosters.
We will have to borrow money. This is not either or, it's and both. And we'll probably have to put some revenue raisers on the table as well as we develop our next budget.
President Trump reacted to the Supreme Court, rejecting his complaints that he's being harassed and ruled in favor of a New York prosecutor's demands for Trump's tax records.
This is purely political. I win at the federal level, and we won very decisively, and so they send it into New York. And you know what's going on in New York. Everyone's leaving. It's turned out to be a hellhole.
However, the president's taxes and other financial records will likely be kept out of the public eye, at least until after the November election. President Trump's former personal lawyer is back behind bars after refusing the terms of home confinement, which include constraints on talking to the press. Michael Cohen is serving a 3-year sentence for campaign finance violations. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John.
Michael, thank you. 5:36 on Wall Street. Time now for the Burden Accountants and Advisors Sports Report. Good morning, John Stashower.
Good morning, John. As the 4 pro sports leagues all get ready to play college sports is another matter. The day after the Ivy League said there'll be no games this fall, Big Ten football made a move to limit games and travel. Teams will only play within the conference. So out are games like Ohio State versus Oregon, Michigan, and Washington, and a game that was to be played in Green Bay between Wisconsin and Notre Dame. Other leagues may follow suit. The athletic director at Ohio State says he's pessimistic about any football being played this fall. NBA rookie sensation Zion Williamson being sued for $100 million by a marketing agent that he fired. A court motion and an affidavit says that Williamson's stepfather was paid $400,000 while Williamson spent 1 year at Duke. The real question will be whether Duke and its legendary coach Mike Krzyzewski, who both had pristine reputations, were involved. The Nets practiced in Orlando. They've added to the roster veteran Michael Beasley, but he can't practice until he tests negative 6 straight days, and he can't play games until he serves a 5-game drug suspension. The Knicks working on hiring a new coach. They're 8th in 9 years. Yesterday's interview was with Tom Thibodeau. He's seen as the favorite to get the job. Tiger Woods' first tournament since February will be next week. The Memorial in Ohio, a tournament he has won 5 times. The Mets last winter had a deal in place for Steve Cohen to buy the team for $2.6 billion. The deal fell through. Now the price tag has reportedly gone down to about $1.7 billion. New York Post reports the group that includes Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez is the one that the Wilpons would prefer to sell to. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. John?
All right, John, thanks a lot. It is now 5:37 on Wall Street, and time for the Tri-State Business Report. Here with that is Bloomberg's Ed Corey.
More than 300,000 New York businesses received loans from the Federal Paycheck Protection Program, which has so far distributed $521 billion to U.S. businesses struggling in the wake of the coronavirus. That's according to data released by the federal government this week. An increasing number of Connecticut workers filed new claims for jobless benefits at the beginning of the month. The news comes as Governor Ned Lamont delayed a 3rd phase of commercial reopenings after spring business closures to contain COVID-19. 12,400 Connecticut residents filed initial jobless claims last week. Acting on a commitment to improve service and reduce long lines at MVC agencies, Governor Phil Murphy and Motor Vehicle Commissioner Chief Administrator Sue Fulton have announced a furlough exemption. It's for MVC agency employees, as well as extended expiration dates for licenses and registrations. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey.
And thanks, 5:39 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team for some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on WHAS in Louisville. Ford is resisting its employees' push to end sales of police vehicles.
I'm Jeff Bellinger, and on Kogo in San Diego, I'm reporting Walt Disney has not yet decided on an opening date for Disneyland.
I'm Roger Hearing on Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio in London. We're reporting on big job losses in high street retailers, despite the Chancellor's push to avoid unemployment.
I'm Gina Cervetti, and for WFLA in Orlando, I'm reporting that NBC's new Peacock streaming service debuts next week, but as of now, you won't be accessing it through Roku or Amazon Fire TV.
And those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. And coming up on the economic front today, we get data on inflation. Economists say the producer price index probably increased for the second month in a row. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
In May, the PPI posted the first increase since January in the aftermath of pandemic shutdowns and the oil price war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. Even so, Bloomberg Economics says significant spare capacity combined with a stronger dollar will keep wholesale costs in check. Federal Reserve officials also anticipate low inflation, allowing for additional emergency economic aid if needed. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, thanks, Vinny. It is 5:40 on Wall Street. Latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is online now. It's the heist issue, including the empty frames that remain the art world's biggest mystery. Terminal customers can receive a complimentary subscription at MAG Go and listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly right here on Bloomberg Radio and on YouTube weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. Wall Street time. You're listening to Bloomberg.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
Eurotunnel-Le-Châtel is a safer way to get to France and beyond, with social distancing built in. There's no scrum at security, hanging around for your bags, or shouldering strangers in your seat. With Eurotunnel-Le-Châtel, simply drive on at Folkestone and stay in your car comfortably. then drive off 35 minutes later. Stay safe. Go Tunnel, Eurotunnel, Le Shuttle, a safer way to France and beyond.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
So I often struggled at school. Once, when we had a maths test, I looked around the room and everyone was just doing it. And I couldn't, and I began to cry. But my teacher came over and said, it might look like one big problem, but it's just a handful of small ones, and you can deal with that. I hear her voice in my head for every problem I face to this day.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. You could get £26,000 tax-free to train as a teacher. Subject to eligibility, selected subjects only. Search Get Into Teaching.
Like right now? Get your cook on later with Asda. Get 3 for £3 on snacks like a 5-pack of Cathedral City nibbles and Dairyly Lunchables. Peckish anyone? Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Lunchables 63 grams to 83.4 grams. Prices £1.50 to £1.55. Offers end 22nd of July.
The TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says 4 states that account for about 50% of new COVID-19 infections, Arizona, California, Florida, and Texas, need to aggressively keep people socially distanced. Brian Todd reports a new study says silent spreaders, those who do not display symptoms, may be to blame for the increase in infections.
Study author Allison Galvani says that means the silent spreaders are mostly people who are going through those few days just before symptoms show themselves or who are completely asymptomatic. And she says younger, seemingly healthy people are disproportionately responsible for silent transmission.
Thursday, 59,000 new coronavirus cases were reported. An L.A. police investigation confirmed suicide was the cause of death of a black man, 24-year-old Robert Fuller, found hanging from a tree in a Southern California city park. Fuller's family said he wouldn't have taken his own life. I'm John Trout.
Pandemic information is coming at you so quickly, it's hard to react, never mind plan.
How bad do you think it's going to get?
How much more cutting do you need to do?
Here's help. Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Nathan Hager. S&P futures are lower by 14 points. Dow futures down 152. NASDAQ futures down 22 points. The DAX in Germany, CAC in Paris, both up 0.2%. The 10-year up 12/30 seconds, yield 0.57%. 2-year yield 0.14%. NYMEX crude oil down 2.4%, down 95 cents, $38.67 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.5%, up $8.40 at 18.1220 an ounce. The euro is at 1.1285 against the dollar. The yen at 106.80. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael?
Thank you very much, Nathan. For the first time, daily coronavirus cases in the U.S. have passed 60,000. Florida, Arizona, Texas, and California reported record deaths from the virus. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden launched his plan to revive the economy from the coronavirus-related recession with a promise to build back better than what existed before the crisis. A centerpiece of Biden's plan is intended to foster manufacturing and encourage innovation. China pledged to retaliate after the U.S. sanctioned a top member of China's ruling Communist Party and 3 other officials over human rights abuses in the far western region of Xinjiang. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John.
Michael, thank you. 5:48 on Wall Street. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. Good morning. I'm John Tucker. Well, New Jersey, once part of the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, The state flattened the curve, and now there are fresh worries and increasing transmission rate. Bloomberg's David Weston sat down with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy to discuss the state's response to the virus and where it goes from here. Let's listen in to part of that conversation right now.
Governor, I think the eyes of the nation and maybe the world are focused on New Jersey to some extent now because you were really the epicenter to some extent of the COVID-19. You fought it off. You took a lot of tough actions. You did it day after day after day. Get those numbers down. Now they're starting to come back. Why?
You're absolutely right, and the toll has been enormous. Over 13,000 confirmed deaths and probably at least a couple more thousand that are suspected also to have passed from COVID-19. That's the awful tragedy. Our numbers have gotten a lot better. And so as they got better, we made the decision based on the facts and the science to begin step-by-step reopening our state. So we knew when we were doing that, doing it responsibly, I hope at every step, that we would take on more risk in terms of increasing the potential for transmission. We were comfortable with that risk. What we were not expecting was the explosion in cases elsewhere in the country. And so the rate of transmission has gotten a little bit uncomfortably high for us, just over 1. Today it improved slightly. And so we put in with New York and Connecticut a travel advisory for folks to self-quarantine if they're coming back into our state from a hotspot. As your colleague noted, and by the way, I welcome her to New Jersey as a resident, we are now requiring face coverings outdoors. Those are 2 steps that we've taken over the past 10 days or so. We've held off on indoor dining, which brings me no joy, but it's quite clear that this virus is a lot more lethal inside than it is outside. And so we're watching this minute to minute, and again, trying to make the decisions at every step based on the facts.
As you say, Governor Murphy, the numbers are still way better than they were at the worst of it, but that transmission number of above R0, I think it's called, is disturbing. If the main problem is people coming from outside the state, either people who live outside the state or New Jerseyans who've been away and come back, do you really have the authority? Do you have the power to control that? I understand you can advise them to quarantine. How do you enforce that?
Yeah, you could do a fair amount, but it is the United States of America, and one of the things we can't do constitutionally is to stop people from another state at the border. I never thought I'd say this, David, but I'd love to be able to build a wall around us, either our state or our region. So it's a big amount of appeal to personal responsibility, and New Jerseyans have been extraordinary throughout the entire pandemic of doing the right thing, whether it's staying at home, now asking to wear face coverings, work at home, a whole series of things that we've asked of our fellow citizens, and they've done the right thing. We need that again. We're developing an app which is not ready for prime time yet, but that will come online. Lots of signage at our borders on the highways and airports. We've built up enormous testing capacity, which we didn't have several months ago. And so there's not just self-quarantine if you've come in from a hotspot, but get tested, for crying out loud. We've built the capacity, use it. So we're hoping to get at this a number of different ways. We've had a few instances that we know of already, and the system has worked. We're building out a large community core of contact tracers. They were able, for instance, to track down some folks who have been at a wedding in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hoboken had a bunch of folks returning from hotspots. So far, it has worked, but it is not a perfect system. And again, we have to appeal to personal responsibility.
To what extent are you prepared to back that up with the specific executive order about the face masks outside, if you can't socially distance? Are you prepared to go beyond just advising or even giving out some warnings? Are you prepared to actually fine people?
Absolutely, you have to be. You have to put teeth in this. But part of the reason why we hadn't gone to, we were the first state in America, by the way, to go to mandatory face coverings indoors. Part of the reason we didn't go outdoors until now, number one, the virus is a lot less lethal. That doesn't mean it isn't lethal, but it's a lot less lethal outside. And secondly, to your point, David, it's really hard to enforce. We don't want to put something on the books that we can't put teeth behind. But again, it's up to local law enforcement. We expect folks to do the right thing here. And do we reserve the right to warn them, to summons them, to fine them potentially? Absolutely, we have to.
That's New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy speaking with Bloomberg's David Weston late yesterday on Bloomberg Radio and Television. Nathan.
All right, John, thank you. It's 5:53 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Law Report. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Trademark attorneys speculate the Washington Redskins are scouring the federal trademark registry. Being able to lock down trademark rights will be a major factor in any name change for the NFL team. The EPA has paused its plan to reopen its Washington headquarters, according to an internal email that went out on Thursday. And environmental groups plan to file suit in California over a logging permit in Sonoma County that would clear mature redwood trees.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need on one legal research platform. Guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now we turn to the big legal development of the week. The Supreme Court handing down two decisions in some of the most watched cases of the term involving subpoenas for President Trump's financial records. In a pair of 7-2 rulings, the court backed a New York grand jury subpoena for the president's financial records while blocking, for now, House subpoenas. The decisions will likely keep the president's financial records out of public view through the November election. For more, Bloomberg's June Grosso speaks to Leah Littman, a constitutional law professor at the University of Michigan Law School.
Can you tie the reasoning in both cases together for some overarching principles?
Sure. So the reasoning in both of the subpoena cases was, in important respects, a win for the rule of law. The Supreme Court rejected the president's broadest argument that the president's personal financial records can never be subpoenaed while the president is in office. The Supreme Court also rejected the Department of Justice's slightly narrower version of that argument, which was that grand juries or Congress had to make heightened showings of particular need in order to obtain the president's financial records, even from third parties. However, the outcome in both cases was practically a win for the president because the Supreme Court directed the lower court to review the lawfulness of the subpoenas, allowed the president to raise challenges as to why these particular subpoenas interfered with his ability to carry out his duties. Because that directive will tie up these subpoenas in further litigation for the next several months, none of the president's financial records will become public before the 2020 election.
Would you describe either of these as landmark decisions on presidential powers akin to, let's say, the Nixon tapes case or the Clinton-Paula Jones case?
I would not go so far as to say either of these decisions are landmark opinions on presidential power. So the New York grand jury case in particular was very much an affirmance of the court's prior decision in the Nixon-Watergate case. I do think that the congressional subpoena case is a significant presidential power decision in that it preserves the ability for presidents to delay, if not prevent, congressional oversight of presidential activities.
University of Michigan law professor Leah Littman speaking with Bloomberg's June Grosso. You can catch more of that interview plus analysis of the latest legal news by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcasts. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. S&P futures are lower now by 12 points. Dow futures down 126. NASDAQ futures down 18 points. The DAX in Germany is moving higher, up 0.4% now. So is the CAC in Paris. Nikkei 225 in Japan closed down 1% overnight. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong was 1.8% lower. 10-year Treasury up 11/30 seconds. The yield 0.57%. 2-year yield 0.14%. NYMEX crude oil down 2.2% or 87 cents at $38.75 a barrel. The euro at 1.1290 against the dollar. The yen at 106.79. Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice.
But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Friday morning by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Are you ready to play?
This summer, ITV Hub is fully loaded with loads more full series.
Gonna get messy.
Yeah, like it's fuller than ever. From Love Island to Laya, we have divas lined up back to back.
Fill me in, sister.
From the GC and the Ibiza Weekender reps to the Real Housewives, it's round full of lots and lots of...
This is getting too much now.
Laughs, tears and smiles. It's crammed full with full series like Quiz, Flesh and Blood, Harry's Heroes and Manx in Mumbai. We've grown, expanded and just gone a bit extra this summer.
Give me some on.
ITV Hub fully loaded this summer.
The best experience possible.
Did we mention it's looking fuller than ever?
I was offered one.
I was offered one. Were you?
Yeah, I was offered one too.
1 2 1 2. I was offered one.
I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Friday, July 10th, 2020. Coming up this hour.
Daily U.S. coronavirus cases passed 60,000 for the first time.
Florida, Texas, and California report record deaths from the virus.
New York City cancels large events through September to stem the spread.
And New Jersey takes measures to slow a rising transmission rate.
A weak tropical storm will impact the tri-state area. Plus, President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, is back in prison. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. The latest on the sale of the Mets, and Tiger Woods announces his return to the PGA Tour.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good Friday morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm John Tucker. Bloomberg Daybreak being brought to you by Interactive Brokers Mutual Fund Marketplace. Clients from over 200 countries and territories have access to over 21,000 no-load and 8,300 no-transaction fee funds. Learn more at ibkr.com/funds.
And U.S. futures are lower this morning. It is 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down 11 points. Dow futures down 119. NASDAQ futures down 16 points. The DAX in Germany up 0.4%. The CAC in Paris is 0.3% higher. Nikkei in Japan closed 1% lower. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong was down 1.8%. 10 years up, 10.30 seconds. The yield 0.57%. The yield on a 2-year 0.14%. NYMEX crude oil down 2.25% or 89 cents lower at $38.73 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.5%, up $8.70 at $18.1250 an ounce. The euro is at 1.1293 against the dollar. The yen at 106.78. John?
And Nathan, for the first time, daily coronavirus cases in the U.S. have passed 60,000.
Everybody says, we have so many cases. That's because we test so many people.
That's the president's reasoning for the increase. He spoke late yesterday. Around the same time, Florida, Arizona, Texas, and California reported record deaths from the virus.
And Arizona is seeing its highest number of infections in 6 days. It comes on the heels of what Governor Doug Ducey calls a brutal month of June.
What we have had since are continuing weeks of increasing positivity. So our positivity is way too high.
And he's now tying the increase directly to reopening efforts.
The more activity that is happening in our economy, the more the spread will continue.
Governor Ducey is now telling Arizona residents to stay home. He's also delaying a decision on whether to open classrooms for the new school year.
In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing ahead with plans for in-person classes.
I want our kids
to be able to minimize this education gap that I think is developed.
DeSantis says Florida is leading the way with virtual learning, but it's still not enough.
You talk to teachers about what happens over the summer and how there's a summer lag. Well, geez, now we're from mid-March all the way now. And in spite of good efforts with the online, it's just not the same.
Record deaths in Florida are also being accompanied by record hospitalizations. Miami-Dade County reports the highest number of patients in intensive care since April.
In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is canceling large events that require a permit through September.
It is not time for large gatherings. Just like we said we would not have indoor dining in New York City because we saw the really painful reality in Texas and Florida and other places.
De Blasio hopes the move can free up room for outdoor dining and the city's Open Streets program, which expands public spaces for residents.
We've had a lot of success making New York City healthier. We got to really stick to that plan.
New York will deny permits for any event larger than one city block, although demonstrations, religious events, and news conferences are exempt.
And in New Jersey, worries remain over a transmission rate that's creeping up from previously low levels.
The rate of transmission has gotten a little bit uncomfortably high for us, just over 1. Today it improved slightly.
We spoke exclusively with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy late yesterday. He joined with New York and Connecticut in asking travelers from high infection states to self-quarantine.
You could do a fair amount, but it is the United States of America, and one of the things we can't do constitutionally is to stop people from another state at the border. I never thought I'd say this, but I'd love to be able to build a wall around us.
While there's no plans for a wall in the works, Murphy says the state is taking other measures to stem the spread of the virus.
We're building out a large community core of contact tracers. They were able, for instance, to track down some folks who have been at a wedding in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hoboken had a bunch of folks returning from hotspots. So far, it has worked, but it is not a perfect system. And again, we have to appeal to personal responsibility.
On Wednesday, New Jersey's transmission rate reached 1.1. That's the number of people each COVID-positive person infects. Just weeks ago, the rate stood at 0.6.
And the jump in cases had investors selling stocks yesterday. We saw a similar reaction in Asia overnight, with China leading declines. Bloomberg's Juliet Sally joins us from Singapore with details. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Nathan and John. The Shanghai Composite fell for the first time in 9 sessions after 2 state-backed Chinese funds said they plan to trim their holdings, a sign Beijing may be trying to cool the recent rally, which has added $1 trillion to equity values this week alone. The CSI 300 closed down 1.8%, retreating slightly from 5-year highs. Elsewhere, automakers and retailers weighed on Japan's main index amid concerns a resurgence in virus cases there will derail the economic comeback. The Nikkei 225 down by 1% in Tokyo. A resurgence in virus cases in Australia saw the ASX 200 fall to its lowest level this month. And here in Singapore, stocks fell and the currency was slightly weaker as Singaporeans head to the polls. In Singapore, Juliet Saleh, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Juliet, thanks. And when it comes to the economic recovery from the pandemic, estimates continue to slow. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic says a return to pre-crisis levels could take as long as 2 years.
The models that I'm looking at right now suggest that by the end of the year, we'll have more jobs and more growth than we have right now. But we won't be at a level that is equal to where we were pre-crisis. I don't think we're going to be at that stage until mid-2021 or maybe later into 2022.
Bostic expects bumps throughout the recovery as we learn more about the virus and as Americans find